Tonight's episode, The Ripoff.
It's 11:59 at Radio Free America, and this is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
And welcome everybody to our daily gun show. Come to you live every weeknight at midnight Eastern, and we talk about guns for an hour. We are known as the most compassionate gun chat. Not like those harsh and abrasive gun chats during the day. And let's see, we got some things to chat about today that we put in the description of the video. And these are things that have been posted for the most part today. Let's see. First thing is, Walt put up a video, 3 things wrong with American gun culture. I don't know. I guess Walt's going anti-gun or something. I don't know what's going on with that video. If anybody's seen that one, we can chat about that. FCC warns amateur radios not to commit crimes. So this whole false flag thing is going into multiple mediums. So if anybody wants to see that video, everybody's seen that video, wants to chat about that. Let's see. Trump posted a video about Trump taking on the ATF. However, I did not watch that one. So if anybody's seen that one, then we can chat about that. Let's see. Patriot in the Dark posted a video about his Patriot 1776 project. Might have been a bad time to choose that as the title for his project, but that one's linked. We got, this FUDDBUSTERS guy, who I guess is a lawyer for FPC, posted a video, and I didn't watch that one, even though I put it in here. And then we have ATF sued by Kansas City and Illinois. Oh, that is, you know what? I thought that said NRA sued, so I don't even know what that one's about, but that's another one I didn't watch. Let's see. Then Mark Smith discusses how to train more effectively. I watched parts of that one, and I didn't watch the whole thing. And then I got some weird comment that I deleted on that video about the Kahr, so I posted that and use that as an example of crap I no longer do anymore. I only post that to mock what we used to do. Times change, people evolve, and I'm almost embarrassed that I did that crap. I participated in it, and I'm not embarrassed, but I'm close to the brink. If I could do it over again, I would probably do a lot less of that. It was a lot wasted time there BSing about garbage that doesn't matter. All right, so with that, this is episode 1262. We've been doing this show for 1,262 episodes. There's people out there that haven't even done 62 podcasts before, let alone 600, let alone the 200 or 1,000. So been doing this for a while, and the format has evolved, and we're going to put a link out there, and we're going to talk about 2A, or we're going to talk about these topics that are in the description, and we'll see what happens. So DJ was out there, barbecue's out there, we had some stuff going on here, so started the show late. Glover is out there, Makojo is out there. We'll see if anybody jumps in. We'll have a chat. If anybody's still around, you can use, this is a conversation. This isn't a show. It's called a daily gun show to con all the suckers, but it's a conversation. So you can either jump in and be part of the conversation, stand around and act like you're better than the conversation, or just fall asleep because you don't need to be up this late if you're not part of the conversation. But yeah, 1,263. So like I say, I'm not interested in just having the same old show that everybody else has done a million times at night, right? We're trying to evolve the conversation. This dude knows what we're talking about. Barbecue clicked on the link. that's provided, unlike the cowards that run those daytime shows that have to hide behind scripts and production value. We're here to evolve the conversation. So anyway, did you get a chance to watch any of this stuff? What's been going on with the barbecue today? And
I have been really busy the last week or so. I tried catching the Daily Bullet today, and that was just unwatchable because of the audio stuff that they have going on. Which then I was actually thinking about that today, and with the way we are kind of suspecting that they're recording everything, possibly on like one given day, all these audio issues could have happened on the exact same day, and we're just gonna have to suffer until that round of recording is through.
Yeah, no, that's probably exactly what it is.
So I don't know why I just thought of that today, but yeah, I watched about half of that one and I just turned it off. I couldn't take it.
Did y'all watch Legally Armed America and his little shot show junior as well?
No, I don't like that guy. What did he do? Some sort of I wish I was a shot show kind of thing?
No, he got in. He brought in, I think, 10 vendors into Lake Charles, and then that was yesterday. And Spike Industries, they did some neat stuff. They made their first gun, so you could buy all the parts for Gen 3. I think it's a G19. So you could build it completely, with kind of the polymer lower by them, and then all the parts. But they really kind of make it a little bit better than Polymer 80 or for anybody else. And then they had some other parts, and then today was their field day. So each of the gun companies, they shot from home and they live streamed, and you were able to ask questions through the guy in Louisiana, and he was able to ask the manufacturer the question live on the air. Trying to make the best of it.
Oh, sorry, yeah, I'm muted. Yeah, but that's what happens when SHOT Show, right? The SF doesn't take advantage of it. Other people are going to jump in. That Fire Festival is this week also, I think, or it's the end of the week. And there's probably others. I saw something whenever I let Instagram go and I look at the stuff that on Instagram, once you look at the new stuff, it starts showing you stuff that isn't in your feed, the stuff that you don't subscribe to. And then there somewhere, one of the look at me kind of YouTubers was like showing off some event they were at. I didn't even know about that one. You're in Poma though, Clover. Has Poma got anything going, or has there been any clamor in there about like alternative to SHOT Show type of events?
Nope.
Because I'll bet you there's a bunch, right? Everybody is geared up for it, and everybody probably had ammo and budgets to, be there. And then, they don't want to just sit there and not do nothing. Or some of them don't want to do nothing.
Right. Nope.
Anyway, so
what's going on with them?
Anybody check out? Well, have you, since Clover's in here and we're talking about SHOT Show, have you checked out any of that virtual SHOT Show stuff?
Yeah, I tried. It's crappy. I don't know how else to explain it.
Oh, is it like a tedious thing to sign up for and be there for, or just the production value is bad, or it's boring, or what's
all of the above? Yeah, it's kind of like, how GRPC did like the pre-recorded weird. It's almost like that. It's like they just took the sales pitch or the media kit info from the companies and like play that or something. The part I watched anyway, it was weird.
Oh, so it's almost like a presentation of whatever you call that, like not quite a commercial, but not quite. It's almost like the beginning of a presentation a bunch of times.
Well, the what I seen was that way. So that doesn't mean there weren't others, of course.
No, I've been to a couple. I've been to SHOT Show a few times. So back in the day, I figured, I might as well explore this other stuff that I never explored before, the industry stuff, right? When I started to get a little bit bored of every single year looking at the same stuff, or, just new versions of the same stuff, and to explore the industry more and just to get more, view, because they put a lot of effort into all that other stuff they do. Like there's little seminars constantly, and there's workshops, and who knows? I mean, you can't even keep track of it. There's literally like a giant phone book of all the stuff they do there. So I tried to do some of that stuff, and yeah, it was really difficult. Like, it was like I don't know how to explain it except for some of the electronic computer stuff I used to do back in the day for work. Like you'd go to a place and it'd be like, there's a couple of things you have to do, and then go do some, be productive with the rest of your time there. And, you'd have to figure out like what things to listen to or what would be the effective use of your time. And it was sort of like that kind of nightmare. You'd have all these options. It was like going back to high school or trying to figure out how to get across town on 6 different buses. It was like, it's like a whole nother complicated mess just to figure out what to show up and be at, to attend or basically what to experience. And I would say I did that once in 2008, and it was such a horrible experience. We literally almost got kicked out of SHOT Show because we didn't understand it, the whole thing, and I tried to sell stuff and I wasn't supposed to, and sell our services basically. Then a couple of times, since I knew that was an aspect of SHOT Show and I knew there was elements of it that are potentially interesting, I've done some other stuff. So like Maj's thing last year was in that realm, but again, totally worthwhile. Like unlike some of that other garbage, this was like how to broaden your reach or how to broaden your community focus or something, like at a gun shop level, like how to reach more customers. And that was super interesting. So there are interesting things out there. So I've tried to do it. And the other thing is, as media, some of them feed us. So I've been to some of them because I'm cheap. So like I've attended some of them because you get fed during it, let's say. So I have attended some over the years, but if it's just that stuff, I guess is what I'm getting at, then yeah, I could see that being just about a waste of time to do if you're at home with all the opportunity to do everything else. At SHOT Show, it's like almost not that bad to sit down at one of those if you've been like 3 days of walking around, and it's still kind of productive use of your time, but you're also getting to sit there for an hour or two.
Right.
It almost kind of makes sense on a Thursday or something, or even on a Monday, if you're still trying to figure everything out, you can kind of sit there and get some information from the seminar, but also be planning out your week. Like if you can kind of multitask at one of those things, it's usable at SHOT Show, but at home, nah, you could, especially if it's just stuff that's recorded, they could let you just say, hey, here is all of it in a table of contents form, right? Like go look at it if you want, when you want.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, they had an opportunity to go nuts and be like, here's the kind of stuff we talked about the other day, all kinds of creative stuff that, well, whatever. This is definitely going to get everybody to beyond that. I mean, we were all sitting around here doing live stuff for some amount of experience compared to the companies that have no experience, and wishing that the companies would start doing this stuff. Well, now we're not alone. Now there's like most of the country has lots of just jumped in, lots of experience with live. It's all weird, stupid Zoom experience or Skype experience, but still it's experience with live. So I would assume any virtual events going forward are just going to start getting insanely better, right? Like the software is going to come up to speed, and everything's just going to get better, I would expect, now that people are experienced with it and having to use it and understanding that they have, more expectations than what we got.
Right.
But anyway, so I was just wondering if you'd seen those SHOT Show things. And I've got quite a list of stuff over there. Does anybody have anything to chat about from the stuff in the description of the video today? Any of these videos I talked about? So I'll go through them again. FCC warning ham operators not to commit crimes. I don't know if anybody watched the videos about that.
Really?
Yeah, so the FCC came out with a video or with a warning, and then there's basically one big club that every ham radio operator in the United States joins. It's just like a monopoly club that everybody joins. And that company or that club basically came out and said, yeah, we agree with the FCC. Nobody should do anything. Just like how the gun owners, if you watch Instagram, a bunch of the gun groups came out, all the Pincus's gun groups and a couple others all came together and said, we're not going to condone any kind of violence and all that, like no gun owners groups, just to make it clear. So It's sort of like the club sort of made that statement, and the FCC made this really worded statement. Like if somebody rushed it, or if it was it was obviously weird because it also came out on a Sunday morning. I mean, as far as I know, the ham almost never, the FCC almost never bothers ham. because ham doesn't ever do anything and nobody cares about ham. It's like, literally one of the least important things in the world. So,
but do you think it's because ham are the same Trump type guys, voters as well?
It says right in the warning. I don't have it in front of me, but that link, I have the link, the guy who's a ham channel, and he reads it, and it literally says, there's a paragraph in there that says, because there's things online that think that ham is some alternative platform to, the insurrectionist Trump stuff. Yeah, that's literally in the FCC thing. Now, the ARRL, the club, they didn't have anything about Trump. It was just like, hey, we think that nobody should commit crimes with hams. We agree. Like, we're all about being safe and legal with ham radios.
And they found 12 out of the 25,000 National Guard that are in to be extremists, meaning they wrote something on Facebook that they probably didn't agree with the election.
Well, it's really going to be impossible to know since the military doesn't got to tell you nothing. They're just going to tell you.
The FBI investigated them already, and they rounded up 12 out of the 25,000 that made the news today.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm saying they're not going to tell us more than what they feel like, and the media is only going to tell us what the military lets known. The media is only going to pick what they feel like, and that's what's going to get distributed. So, There's people in the military that are bad people, because the military is like 10% of the country. So pretty much however the country is, that's the military. Now, it ain't like bad people doing the hardest of core stuff that takes a lot of time and effort to do, but the people that are doing the easiest stuff and the stuff that takes the least amount of background checks or whatever to get into, or the least amount of references or what to get to. Like, there's plenty of people in the military that are just regular people that have whatever weird opinions or pasts and whatever. So I'm not going to throw them under the bus, but I'm not going to say everybody's angels either. But that's hardly news. I mean, to find 25,000 people, I mean, come on, there's some of them in there that are probably mean to dogs, or like there's probably some people in there that don't like ice cream or something. There's probably some people in there that are left-handed. Like, we can pick all kinds of characteristics and find them out of 25,000 people.
All right, sure.
Definitely the media wants to, well, nobody showed up, right? So first off, they don't have anything to push those people at. So now they just look like a bunch of paranoids, and they can't just leave it sit like that, like, right? Well, we got to make it look like something. So let's start picking on the people we ordered. But anyway, so the FCC is definitely putting some stuff out there, kind of talking about, a bunch of people have been getting their hams lately. A bunch of people have been renewing their hams, because weirdly, this whole thing has been coming up right when 10 years after a bunch of us went through a whole interest in ham. I don't know, dozens of us all got ham radios at the same time. Or got ham licenses, I guess, and all got radios. Well, back then you had to get your license first. There was no Baofeng to cheat with and get a radio first. But anyway, with all that, I figure that's just kind of interesting to hear that. And I don't know if it's because I've been looking at ham stuff or what, but that came up in my feed on a channel that is a ham channel that I do subscribe to, but has never come up in my feed that I can remember before. I've certainly never watched their videos unless maybe years ago. Like I say, I don't remember watching that guy's video ever, but I think I am subscribed to him. So it's just some guy who was, doing ham back in the day. And I think is still doing just ham. Anyway, so that was the one thing. We got the, was it Crump's video about ATF doing something Trump doing something about ATF a little too late?
Yeah, I don't know what that, God, I hate to admit it. I had to bail on that one. I just couldn't.
That one was Crump's. It wasn't very long either. So is he just a weird?
Crump. I can handle the live stuff he does, like when he's got a guest. But Crump, man, I don't know. One of us needs to work with him or do something on his presentation, and it's like, he's just. I can't hardly. It's just he's hard for me to absorb stuff from just him.
Okay, that's fair. So
it's just the flavor. It's nothing else. I don't like Hickok either, by the way. So, but yeah,
no, that's fine. There's a lot of people that it's just tough to get it across or whatever. And then there's people that I'll tune out. Like when I watch Jared, like I'll watch Jared for the info, or I subscribe to Jared and I'll watch a video if it's something that's interesting just to get the flavor of it. But I know he's going to talk about coffee, and he's going to go a little bit way more I just fallen than I go. But I still listen to his or I watch his videos with the heads up. And as far as fairly brief, I mean, he doesn't go on and on. There's people I can't deal with people that have to repeat everything 3 times. I mean, I know I do it at the end of a show when you're trying to figure out if you've got anything else to say before you wrap it up, or you're waiting for somebody to jump in or something with the lag or whatever. But aside from that, there's people whose whole thing is like, say things 3 times so it sticks in. Say things 3 times so it sticks in, right? Say things 3 times so that it sticks in. And I'm sick of that. I can't deal with that. Especially with news and stuff.
Right.
So let's see. The last chance to enter. So Patriot in the Dark's got his thing going on. Like I say, the whole Patriot thing, they're going nuts on. Well, I guess Trump made something called Patriot 1776 or some sort of, I don't know. It's hard to say now because now it's like, you know, a bunch of advertisings are putting Trump in there because now it's like, gimme, I guess. If you put Trump in there, people are going to look at it. So I think Trump is doing some kind of a project called the 1776 History Project or something. Or am I crazy? Anybody else seen
You're
this?
right. It's to bring patriotic back in the schools.
Okay, so it's like Trump does have some sort of 1776. Of course, he picked a freaking number that's the country's, but still, I'm guessing that's just going to get wailed on because they're never going to let it go. You know, just because they impeached him twice and he's out of office, he's still going to be the go-to fault for everything, right? But has anybody watched Patriots? This isn't the hero thing still? This is something else?
No, it's a hero thing still.
Okay.
Well, he's got the hero thing going on still, which
Which is
that's
basically trying to ask people to send in stories about people they consider heroes, so that he can have an accumulation of patriotic.
Yeah, that's going to get drawn tomorrow on Rick's Life as I See It, and he's also doing another one where he has joined Odyssey. And if you go over and I think follow him and leave a comment, which I tried leaving a comment today and I don't think it's working for me. But he's got some other sort of prize if you go over and do the Odyssey thing.
All right. So who else using Odyssey? Clover?
No.
Barbecue?
Wild and Well Arm is on there.
Okay. Barbecue?
Getting ready to try to, but right now I'm getting aggravated with it.
Yeah, because it sounds like you don't know how to work it yet. And then DJ?
Not actively.
All right.
I poke around.
Odyssey is library. So library, LBRY, was a thing for a minute. It was library TV. And that was a thing for a while now, a couple of years. And it's, what do they call it? Blockchain? It is not normal hosting. It's distributed. What is that called? Like Napster used to be. So everybody takes a little chunk and holds on to it. And every time everybody's turned on, or everybody's connected to the network, I should say, every time the computer's turned on, the hosting is done distributively. At least that's how I understand it.
So you have to seed. You have to seed what you download, basically.
What did you say? Seed?
Yeah, that's what they used to call it back in the day.
Okay, yeah, I don't know the technicals, so maybe I don't want to say yes or no because I just
So
don't.
like I used to belong, and well, I probably still do, but I hadn't downloaded it and stuff forever. But there was a guy that got me into it was like a closed group back in the day, so you had to get invited. But he was an old crotchety dude that had been in it forever. But anyway, it was audiobooks and even like ebooks and stuff that people would do that with, and you would go in, but you were required, like if you downloaded something, you had to leave it for upload for like 72 hours after you downloaded it, or they would kick you out of the group. You know what I'm saying? So it gives other people a chance to do it as well.
Similar,
and then you earned points to download stuff based on how much you seeded, right? So I would have like an external drive that I just left hooked up, and it stayed seeded all the time, everything I downloaded. So I could.
In other words, you sort of earned by having stuff
Right.
available for people
Right.
to use.
Yeah, because I stored it on that and seeded it, I never had to wait to download anything. I had plenty of credit built up all the time. You know what I mean? So I could just constantly download stuff, basically.
So I think it has something to do with that, but I don't
There
want to
is
say for
something.
sure.
Yeah, I mean, I've earned $17 on it, but I've uploaded some videos, like 6 videos.
$17 or 17 credits?
17 a credit's like 90 cents, so it's
Oh, dang.
$16. Yeah.
Okay, so that's the thing, barbecue. So it's basically like something like where you have to. It's not a normal thing where they have all the video files on their server, right? A computer that they leave on 24/7, like exactly what like Night Strike does with guntube.org, right? That's a real server where he owns a piece of machinery. It's on 24/7 with electric going to it. Every time we go to GunTube, it comes from his server. This is different. I upload a video, you upload a video, they chop it into like brownies or pizza slices, and then they give everybody a slice of pizza. And then they say, there you go. Now, if somebody wants to watch that pizza or that video file, the brains or somehow the gizmo says, okay, let me grab all these slices of pizza real quick. And then it shows me the pizza, right? Well, it does that by having like 700 slices of pizza, even though you only need 10 for the pizza because they're on 700 different computers because you never know what computer's on or off. So it's a whole complicated mess where everybody's videos are kind of in slices on everybody else's computers. And people like what Clover was talking about will just leave a computer on, and that really makes the system work. But really, everybody potentially has a little piece of the whole big pile so that there's all these slices of pizza swarming around. And anytime anybody wants to watch one of the real pizzas, like all they got to do are real videos, they just got to ask for it. It's basically like a torrent. Like you're saying, Netflix saying the torrent. I think it's the same kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
But in a good way, not in a weird way, but in a way that it's really difficult to screw with the system or the network because it's not like YouTube where YouTube can say, I don't want the video to exist, or let me just turn it off or delete it. It's not like that. It's like everybody's got a slice, so it never really gets deleted. So it's definitely a different thing. And that's why I've hesitated to use it. So that's the first thing, barbecue. You've got to do stuff there to create enough earning points or whatever with the credits, I guess, to be able to comment. And it took me, I had to log in and then set up an account with a bank, basically, like set up a thing with a credit card. And then once they took like a day or two, even, I don't know how long it took Wheeled, but once you set up the thing with your bank and they know who you're a real person with the money, then they let you start to watch videos and you earn credits. And then once you have enough credits, you can create a channel, and then you can, at some point in there, you can start to comment. So that's probably what you're experiencing.
So how do you get to this?
Oh, now, so what they did is library was a pain in the ass. You had to download the software and have it on your computer. And then you're just like with the old fashioned Napster, where that was software on your computer and it was a big folder that would swell in your computer because you were sharing files and all that. Like this is that kind of thing. Well, then they created Odyssey.com. I think is it Odyssey.com? Whatever it is, it's Odyssey.
Yeah.
Odyssey so you just go to Odyssey, and that is library. It's turning into Odyssey because they figured out that nobody wants to deal with that whole like download the software, or at least enough people have downloaded the software probably that they don't need any more people to download it. So now you sign up through Odyssey and it's all just Odyssey. But basically library and Odyssey are the same thing. Just browser version and software version.
It's ODYSEE.
Yeah,
That's
SEE.
There's some other funny aspects of it. I tried to upload buy credit, and so it says, what country are you in? I said, United States, and it says, sorry, we don't do the United States.
Well, and yeah, that's right. So it started out as library. And if you remember, there was a bunch of people on YouTube and the gun community and other communities, hackers and politics and just different places where YouTube was giving them terms of service issues or strikes and stuff. So a bunch of people went to library at the beginning when it was still that file transfer and nobody was, only the first adopters were going to it. And nobody was willing to really put it on their machine and at any numbers and download it. And at that point, you could buy credits so that you could create a channel or two because there wasn't enough stuff to earn the credits yet. So they turned all that off, from what I understand, after they kind of had enough people to kind of get it going, enough large audience, people with large enough audiences on board. And now the credits are worth, they're in their own little community. They're worth what they're worth. So the problem is that if you left that system in place, then anybody with enough money could come in and dominate. So they turn that stuff off so that it creates a system where you have to earn your views, or you have to earn your worth, I guess, or whatever that's called.
Mm-hmm. So you'll take a credit and you'll put it on a video, and the more credits you put on a video, the more attention it will get. But you can also, if you like a video and you can get credit, or you can give a tip to somebody.
Right.
You can also get credits if you come every day. You get a credit just for showing up every day, so you get 1 point. So it's just kind of trying to get the whole community active.
And that's why it's just a new creative way to do it, and because you can't just throw money into it to create influence, it's a more real way of getting distributed, whatever the word is, views, or like earning views or what. But yeah, that's the thing, is then you can actually make money with a large enough audience, because every viewer makes credits by just watching. And then you can tip people, like you just said, the tips are worth 90 cents or something. So I haven't gotten to the point where there's any kind of credits moving around yet. But yeah, like somebody here has got 55 credits, it says. So, that's in their bank. So they go around tipping people with that 55 credits, or they cash out once in a while with those credits. So, yeah, it would be interesting to see if it catches on or how it catches on. But now that it's a browser, and now that it's sort of an option, like you can turn it off. It says it's going to not be happy if you turn off the file sharing or whatever aspect of it. But if they don't require that, then it's possible that a bunch of people, it might be that if you don't file share, you don't get to earn credits. So that might, get people to participate. But it's been around for a few years, and it's still barely the thing where we're describing it, right? So it can't be that popular. And now that they've made it Odyssey, we'll see if that's an attempt to stay valid, or if that's just the natural progress of something that's growing. Why did we even start talking about that one? I forgot what got us over to Odyssey, because you were saying somebody posted something to Odyssey.
Patriot in the dark.
Patriot. Yep.
Okay. So yeah, I follow a couple of people over there, but it took me till just the other day, and then I've been busy. But I signed up and I figured it out, because it took me a while to figure it out. I'm acting like I know all about it. It took me like 3 days of trying to ask to figure out how the system freaking works. It doesn't tell you. It doesn't really explain it well. So I went around trying to figure it out, and then I signed up everything. And then I sat here waiting for like 3 days, for probably over the weekend, for some human to actually decide that my shit was valid or whatever. And then I went around, and it took me like 1 day to look at stuff long enough. I watch Kingpin videos a bunch of time. Kingpin posts his videos over there, and a couple other people I know post their videos over there. I think it must have something. I haven't had time to play with it, but it must have something that you can pull your whole video library over there, because like Patriot, all of his videos are over there, I think.
Yeah, it's I've been there for 10 days and still hadn't pulled my videos over.
Oh, so you've seen that. So it lets you?
Yeah, it's real easy. You just do it through library. And once you put it in there, it just says you're going to wait for a week. So every day I go by and it says, we're waiting you got 7 days. It said that for the last 7 days or 5 days. So, yeah, I think they're just backed up with all the new people moving over. So I manually moved over like 7 videos. I move over a new video almost every day and you get points for that too.
Let's see. So that was the Patriots one. Then we got this guy, FUDDBUSTERS, who I think y'all been talking about out there. What Makojo said, that FUDDBUSTER, he's that guy with the beard who did like a video about the pistol braces. He started his channel, and then 4 days later, the pistol braces are in the news. And his first video is about pistol braces, and his like 4th video is about pistol braces. And he's some sort of lawyer, and I thought he was in California, but now I don't know if he's in Florida or where he is. But anyway, so he found one of his videos during the pistol brace stuff right around Christmas time, and then sort of been on my radar watching his stuff. He does a video every once in a while, so he's not inactive, and they're decent videos. He knows how to make a video. But then, is it this one? Either this one or another one was branded with like FPC. So he must be an FPC, Firearms Policy Coalition out of Florida. But I don't know if that means, like, say, I kind of assumed he was out of California. But then Makojo's saying that he was on CRS Firearms for a 2-hour chat last week. And I don't know who that is. So I asked him, he said CRS is a little channel in Ohio. He thinks he called out FUDDBUSTERS on an episode and then had him on his show, which is cool because I did the same. I didn't really call him out. He made a video about something that he premiered, and he was, for that FUDDBUSTER guy, did a video that he premiered. And during the premiere, he was in the chat commenting or whatever. And I said something like, hey, this is a great video. Thanks. And then I asked him something like, hey, would you, let's meet up or let me contact you. And I just never followed up on it. Got busy. So anyway, that's good to hear. So maybe that guy is a real dude. I was afraid he was some sort of robot plant.
He lags behind. He lags behind the curve 2 or 3 days. And if you go back, a lot of his stuff is not just derivative, but
we talking FUDDBUSTERS or CRS?
FUDDBUSTERS, direct quoting other people's posts.
Oh, really? So he's just
unattributed
in his words?
Yeah, but no, just unattributed. So it's like huge, like sentence after sentence, where it's just like somebody else said the same thing 2 days before.
Oh, okay. Well, it would depend on who said it, because if it's all coming from the same production house, then it's just different faces saying the same script, or he's just reading somebody else's writing.
Yeah, I can't be sure.
I know I wouldn't call CRS small exactly. He's got, I think, 60,000 subscribers or something like that now. He's getting fairly large.
Okay. A coach was saying that the title of the episode was HR 127, a federal firearms license for guns and ammo. Yeah, I don't know why your links don't show up. So we'll make this. Oh, I got to go to my other channel. Right on. So then, well, I was linking to the one where the FUDDBUSTER guy was talking about making your own guns, because that's his new video. But if you guys want to chat about that other channel or about the other topics, feel free. I am going to jump away for a minute, and y'all can take over, and we can either talk about the rest of the videos in the description or whatever. But I'll be back in a minute.
So who caught Wall?
I want to say yes, but for some reason it slipped in my mind.
Nah. Drugs and guns.
The three things that bug him about.
Yep.
Yeah, I caught that.
Right on. So what about the sexualization thing? I got a little bit of fresh perspective on that from him tonight.
I felt like it, pretty standard what we all kind of like to complain about with the gun bunnies and whatnot in the industry, recoil videos and all that. I don't know. I mean, for some, if that's what you're into, that's what you're into. And, on one hand, I look at it as if people are willing to pay these women to do that and they're willing to put themselves out there like that, well, that's their business. And, however, I don't know. I just feel like, hey, act like you've been there before. These guys that are just so obsessed with them, it's kind of creepy, but, that's a whole other thing in itself.
For sure.
Anybody put a PSA lower recently. Helping my kids put together their lowers. What's that, Wield?
Wheels isn't around, but no, I don't have any experience with PSA lowers.
Trying to help my kids put theirs together last night and tonight, and I'm missing the buffer tube, retainer spring, and detent pin, whatever you want to call that, that holds the buffer tube spring and everything in. And then I'm also missing a detent for the bolt carrier release. The spring was there, and I got 2 roll pins, which kind of threw me off because I can only ever remember ever getting 1 roll pin with that. Sometimes they'll send like a extra detent or something because sometimes you lose those. But missing the detent this time, but I got 2 roll pins, and I'm feeling like they, put too much of one thing in and forgot the other piece. But just kind of annoyed at this point because I'm gonna have to go order those parts.
So that was all loose. Those parts you're talking about.
Well, they come in plastic bags, which is the weird thing.
Okay.
And like, I want to say, hey, I lost the detent, but with where I was working, there was nothing around there, and I took the parts out of the bag one by one because I was thinking, oh, maybe when I opened the bag, it just fell out. But I don't know.
Those aren't put together with any kind of serious precision, though. I mean, you're talking about people who are just doing piece counts. Lots of them are just temps. Come in, work a couple of days to fill up bags. They run out of a part before another one gets there. You go light. That's why almost all of those things come with doubles, sometimes triples of the common things, or the smallest fiddly bits. But so, what did they say? Did you get a hold of them?
No, I haven't gotten a hold of them. I just discovered it tonight.
Right. Well, yeah. See how they do you, and let us know, man. I'm sure a lot of people would be interested to know how they deal with small parts issues like that. So, do you know anybody who has experience with the CMMG 22 conversion kits for 223s?
I do not. However, I hope to have plenty of experience with them in the coming months.
How's that?
I want to pick up 3 of them, 1 for each kid.
Good call. Yeah, I saw that there were really reasonable prices on the Colt AR-1522s, like 400 bones or something like that. Now, can you run a different upper on those?
I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, I'm super limited in my AR knowledge. So
Let's say it's been so long since I've gotten to handle of any of the Colt AR-1522s. I want to say yes, you could switch out the upper, but I cannot say for sure, so I'm not gonna give you a definite answer.
right on. Non-committal, I understand. So have you torn into your bullpup shotgun yet?
Yeah, just did. Well, I haven't got to shoot it or anything. I mean, I haven't gotten to shoot anything in, well, a little over a year since I've been to the range because, just transportation issues, So, need to go shoot that, but they sent a single point sling for this thing, which is like, oh, that's kind of cool. But at the same time, I'm like, one, it's a really cheap sling. I'm not sure if I'd even want to trust it 100%. That's how cheap it feels. But nonetheless, I was like, that's cool that they sent it. But then I'm feeling all over this thing, and I cannot find a single place that this sling will attach. So then I had a family member over, and I was like, can you find a place that this will attach? And that's how cheap it feels. But nonetheless, I was like, that's cool that they sent it.
Sorry, go ahead.
And for this sling, which I'm not too worried about because I honestly bought this as a home defense shotgun. The fact that it was a bullpup, you see that nice compact package is what really appealed to me about that. So,
All right, you can barely hear you. You're breaking up, and used to have. I'm not going to host a conversation about a bullpup shotgun as a home defense firearm. You can have that conversation with one of the daytime chats. So we got 10 people joining us. Pink has a conversation thing up on the screen. Ghost Gunner CNC mill, worth the money from a prepper standpoint to make guns yourself, or waste of money? Is that deal where it makes whatever off of the plans? It's like a one-trick pony or whatever. Like it makes the one, either makes lowers or it makes Glocks or whatever. I guess nobody knows what a Ghost Gunner CNC.
Well, the Ghost Gunner, I thought the Ghost Gunner I thought you had to have, I thought you had to have 80% to be able to do that. Right.
Oh, okay. So you put an 80. Well, okay. If that's the one though, but that's the one where you put in like an 80% or a whatever Glock frame 80% or a AR frame 80%, and then it does the rest. Like you don't have to do anything. It's just one button and it like
right. You don't have to use a jig and work a drill press and do all kind of weirdness with it. Yeah. But the thing about it, from a prepper standpoint, you've got to have the 80%, right? And with some of the tech that's going on with regular 3D, the poly, whatever, and different stuff now, the filaments and all that they've got, that's the thing with a 3D. You can pretty much, a normal 3D filament type printer is, okay, it may not hold up and last as long, but you can just print another one. Right? I mean, it's just literally as long as you've got filament stacked up. So you don't have to worry about having to pick up try to find. I mean, for how long from now till whenever, how long are we going to be able to buy? Because 3D printing is obviously, I don't even want to say it's the future because it's here right now, but you get what I'm saying? There'll be filament available for 3D printers forever, you would think.
Well, there definitely is, because you can take a milk container, the lid, or the milk container, or the container from like a thing of laundry soap, and shred it, chop it up, and then run it through, basically heat it up and run it through some sort of a silly putty extruder type of thing, or not silly putty, but Play-Doh, factory extruder type of thing, or you make spaghetti noodles with, and you can make, you can remold the 3D printer stuff. So you can definitely make filaments. But my thing would be, I don't know how much those Ghost Gunner things cost. If they cost like $100, then I guess. But if they're anywhere near the cost of a 3D printer, you can make everything Clover just said, plus everything else that a 3D printer can do, where that thing is a one-trick pony, right? So I really can't see. I mean, it's a neat concept, but I don't see the point of having it unless you're like Dead Horse, where you're really interested in having like a whole selection of ARs.
Right.
But I don't know how much it costs. I'm assuming it costs a lot of money, or at least enough to be comparable to a 3D printer.
Yeah, it's. I'll go check it out. Maybe. Is there any shop now?
Only people I know that have had them were either the people who made them, right, and invented them. I guess we've seen them at one of the GRPCs. They had them out on a table, so I've seen it.
So,
and then everybody else got them for free.
The Ghost Gunner 3, they're taking deposits. says they're now shipping. Reserve your unit today for $500. So,
Yeah, I would rather get a 3D printer, right?
you could definitely get a fairly nice 3D printer for less than that.
Yeah,
sure.
Like a decent 3D printer,
Yeah.
or a decent mill. And I would think a CNC software would be available to do, because that's all it is, a CNC software in a little mill. Now, if I'm wrong and you can do other things with it, and it is just a little compact CNC mill, and you can do other projects with it also, then yeah, I mean, if that's a inexpensive mill, like a DIY mill or something. Now, is that the kind of thing that you just buy it and you set it up like an appliance, or is it you buy it and you put it together like an erector set?
I don't know. I know some of the 3D printers, they come in all kind of pieces, and there's assembly, and then there's and I'm just going off. I got a buddy that's real big into it, but there's a lot that goes into getting it set up to just be able to start, right? And then there's tweaking and maintenance and revamping and stuff depending on what you're going to print. But I don't want to discourage anybody by saying that, because I'm sitting here looking at a Dillon reloading press that's the same way. Anytime I want to swap out load something different, I got to change this or change that and verify the powder's throwing correctly, and do several things with it before that's usable. So it's not that that's necessarily a deal breaker, just people need to be aware that that's a thing on a lot of them. They don't ship and you just take them out of the box, plug them in, and they work. There is a definite learning curve still.
You got to level like crazy too. Even if you glass bed it, you still have to get into doing all that, as well as the general assembly, like a damn erector set. Yeah.
You said you got one coming?
Yep.
How did you make a decision to buy one? What did you go with?
What Angelina told me to get.
What was that? Do you remember?
Oh, you just went to somebody who already had one that worked, and then said, "Let me get what you got."
Let me guess. Well, it was an Ender. Was it an Ender?
Yep. I went with the 3X upgraded Pro.
Yep, that's what my buddy. He's got probably a dozen 3D printers in a room of varying cost, and he says best value hands down for the money, and the one he uses the most is his Ender.
Yeah.
And then, is that the one that the Bishops got also?
I couldn't tell you.
They got a couple. I know theirs are making like stuff, because I know people that have them or had them, right? And it's like problem after issue after problem, and then you never hear about their 3D printer anymore. And then it's like there's people that are like, here's a part I made with my 3D printer. Here's a part I made with my 3D printer. Oh, let me go make a part with my 3D printer. And they never talk about their 3D printer. They talk about the parts they're making. You know what I mean? So that's my experience with 3D printers. Either they seem to work for people, or like it's not even an issue, or all they talk about is how they're trying to get their 3D printer to work.
So which one?
How much of that?
Which one did you say it was, BJ?
The 3X upgraded.
That's the big one of the ones they make?
No, it's 220, 250.
I don't know what that means. So is it the medium one or the one they make? The small one or the one they make?
That's in millimeters, the print size. But no, it's not large by any stretch.
Oh, Wield is saying the 3D printer. Oh, okay. So I thought Wield was talking about the Ender thing, or the Ghost Gunner thing. But maybe he's talking about a 3D printer, because he said an LGS guy said it takes 55 hours to make a Glock lower. I thought he meant to mill it out of aluminum, like Pink was saying, out of a block of aluminum. No, but are we talking a 3D printer? Because that makes about sense, right? It could take 55 hours to make a Glock lower, like printed solid or whatever, in the fancy way that they put all the plastic down.
Uh-huh.
So he's saying then that 3D printers are $200 for a starter one and $600 ready to go.
Yeah, 200 ready to go without your medium. Right.
Well, 200 that you pick it up and just take out of the box and use it is way cheaper than $500 for a ghost gunner then.
Yeah. But I don't know anything about the ghost gunner units, so.
It's just like a big printer or like one of the small lasers, right? It's like a big metal box with a lid that opens up, and then it's just got some basically like it looks like a little lathe in there, kind of. And like I said, they had it running during GRPC, so we'd go out to smoke or something, and we'd walk past it, and you could see it in there making noises or whatever, but nothing to look at because it takes hours and hours, right? So you're going to look at it, and you're just going to witness that the machine's moving, but you're only going to see a little piece of a giant piece of work that takes time. So there was not much to see. It just looked like a noisy little metal box sitting on a table about the size of my laser printers, about bigger than a regular printer, but a little bigger than a printer with a copier in it, but not huge. And it was all one thing. There was definitely just a cord coming out of it. There was nothing to it. It was just a big square rectangle with a box with a lid. So not anything like a drill press or something that looks weird, or like a lathe that takes up a lot of room or anything. Definitely compact. You just have this little box. I'm guessing you could probably have it stacked or on a shelf or something. It's very compact, and I didn't have a vacuum or nothing hooked up to it. So I'm guessing you just clean the chips and stuff out of it. But really, if you got an 80%er, there can't be that many chips that come out of digging out the trigger area and a couple of holes, right?
All right.
And I'm guessing that's all it does. Is it's just some sort of a 3D axis drill, right? Drill press, or drill bit, I guess, coming in.
It's an end mill bit, yeah.
End mill bit, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just, so like I say, if it's something where you can then, have it make any little metal parts. I mean, I'd love to have a little $500 mill that is all CNC, and you just plug in a piece of aluminum, and after a little while you have little Monopoly pieces or little pieces of a large machine, or like a replacement hammer. I mean, imagine all the gun parts you could make out of there. Like, I want a different trigger. I want a different ambi safety looking shelf or something, or I want this to be different. Guns will end up starting to have all kinds of weird dovetails everywhere, so you can, like the back straps are on some pistols, and then some pistols even have the front strap, I guess, where the checkering would be on a 1911. I could see future frames being so modular that, every little piece can be replaced with a 3D printed replacement. Yeah, well, we'll see how that goes, because it could be something where you design what you want bullshitting in a live chat like this, and then click a button, and then the next day or in a couple hours you go over to your gun shop and it's just sitting there.
Right.
You pick it up, and then a gun shop can just buy a decent printer and have somebody who knows what they're doing, and then that way everybody has the best of both worlds, their own little custom parts, and somebody else takes care of all the the process of it.
We'll see. I've got, and I'm sure it's enough. I got mad echo. What's going on? I've got my PC in the house that run the media center for the house. It's done a lot of things, and I don't hardly use it anymore since I got this laptop. I find myself use the new laptop anyway. I find myself using it all the time. So my office in the house could be cleaned up with plenty enough space on that desk to set a 3D printer, right? And then I could hook it up to that desktop, and like you're talking about, I don't very seldom do I even go in that office. It's a little, what is it, 6x8 or 6x10? Basically, it's a little closet. Could just set something up to print. If it took 2 or 3 days to print, big freaking whoop. I mean, walk through there, check on it every now and then, right? Make sure nothing's screwed up. But
well, no, because now you just get as an accessory or an attachment, you got a little webcam looking thingy, and they're even set up to where they only snap a picture every time the arms are out of the way, so that if you ever watch like a video, like the time-lapse videos now, like really neat, because the little arm that has to move in the way all the time never even shows up in the videos. So it just sort of appears like time-lapse. But anyway, yeah, you can, it's also for monitoring, so you don't have to be anywhere near the thing to monitor how it's doing. Yeah. Although I don't know what good that does you, because if you're somewhere else and you notice on your phone being weird, what are you going to run in there? There's nothing you can do. Even if you're sitting next to it, right? You really can't stop it from being weird once it starts being weird in front of you.
Yeah, it's not like you could. I mean, it's done screwed up at that point. You know what I mean?
But at least you'd be like, oh, okay, I'm going to go home and turn it off. Or probably at this point, I'm not even probably paying attention. You could probably turn it off from that application, right? Like as soon as you see it screw up, just go, stop, and then go back and clean it up later. So Pink's saying he's going to use his Biden money to buy it, the Biden bindle. I'm going to buy a Biden bindle and then be homeless. But making 1911 sounds interesting. Yeah, I mean, aluminum 1911s, how many of those exist? Is that a thing? You're not cutting out of steel because there's not even the milk squirting or nothing in there.
What was it again?
He's saying that it makes 1911s. So I don't know if you buy 1911 80s.
Yeah.
Well, wait a minute. The only 1911 80% I ever saw was back in the day, and it had no magwell. And I was like, this is ridiculous. Who the hell would ever try to cut a magwell out of a gun? But everyone I've seen from like a real manufacturer, that's how they come too. So they cut their magwells. So that is a thing. But I can't imagine. I'm just saying it would have to be aluminum because they're not going to give you that. What's it called? Whatever that thing is called that we're talking about, the mill. How's it called? Ghost gunner. That's not going to cut steel. Like I can see it cutting aluminum, but
aluminum.
if you're cutting steel, it has to squirt milk on it or whatever, that white.
Yeah, it's cooling fluid. Yeah.
Cooling. Yeah, like that doesn't do anything like that.
Yeah. Well, a lot of times people use that even on aluminum, right?
Well, no, but I'm saying you mean the coolant on aluminum? Well, the first while I was in here, I think aluminum isn't just like aluminum. There's aluminum, and then there's aircraft aluminum, and then there's like high tensile strength aircraft aluminum. So there's different aluminums. But yeah, exactly. Like I've never been to a place that has real mill machines that isn't squirting milk all over everything all the time.
Right.
Just because they don't want to waste the heat. You know, they're building up heat on their bits or whatever. But I have no idea. Those things might also have little inexpensive end mills that you're saying that cost nothing and you just replace them.
Right.
But he's saying you put an 80 in there. But anyway, do they make aluminum frame 1911s? Is that a thing?
Yeah.
I mean, I know I've picked one.
I mean, I don't know that they have 80s or anything like that, but that is certainly a thing. I mean, I've seen poly and aluminum and alloy 1911 frames before. That's
Dead Horse, he's been paying attention to this stuff. I'm sure Pink knows that. Is saying the Ghost Gunner is still flawed. A Makita or DeWalt router with a 5D tactical jig or 80% arms jig is the only way to go. So he's saying with the fixtures from 5D or 80% arms and then like a real router. Yep. And back in the day, Dead Horse did quite a few of those builds live. So setting things up and getting ready and then experiencing builds. I don't know how many bad builds he had, but he had a couple. And then plenty of successful builds. Definitely time on the clock and experience whittling holes into lowers.
All right.
After 10 to 12 lowers, plan on a full rebuild of the Ghost Gunner, new stepper motors and belts. Oh, see, so that's not very many for $500. So my little robot thingy has a DeWalt router, and then like the uprights or the rails or whatever you want to call it are really rigid and strong, and then the motors that move the unit back and forth on those rails and that move the router up and down and stuff are run off of belts. And those belts are like sort of like the belts in a car, except with teeth in them. So they're, they interact with gears instead of just being like a smooth belt. I guess some car belts are ridged. But anyway, it's like very much like a really thin belt for a car, and it's really long. So while it doesn't stretch, it's not supposed to stretch, and it should be flexible, but not stretchy, it stretches. So that's where I could see if it's inexpensive or it's whatever, just wear and tear on a small belt, it sounds like you kill the motors, which makes sense because motors are going to wear out at some point unless they're really good. And the rubber, of course, is going to wear out. And if it uses rubber belts, that makes sense. So anyway, that's good to know, because if it was like, again, if it was $100 unit and you have to put in, another $100 worth of guts every once in a while, I could almost see that, right? Every 12 units. But if you're taking a $500 unit and you're putting, even if you're only putting $100 worth of parts back into it, the fact that you got to update it every 12, it's definitely not for more than hobby work, right? I mean, it's not for production work.
Yeah, no.
Whereas a mill, you pay that much money and buy some kind of mill, it probably works for a long, 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 long time.
Well,
and you can buy.
Go ahead, Clover.
Well, I was just going to say, you're talking about a mill. A lot of times you can find. I mean, very rarely can you find a CNC mill for reasonable prices. They're super expensive, but like just an old mill. I've seen some like factory stuff that was liquidated, and you might be talking a mill from like the 70s or 80s or something like that, potentially even older. But as long as it's in good shape, and you learn how to use it, you could do a ton of stuff with those. And
there's literally nothing that could break on a mill that the mill can't remake. So it doesn't even matter. It just has to be a mill that works for you. But it doesn't matter how old a mill is, because as long as even if it doesn't work, you can make a mill work.
Well, and that's what you can always build the parts or do something. We were in Tulsa one time, and the table we had was a few tables down from people, or might have even been right next to them. That's what they did, is they bought machining equipment, because they sold to gunsmiths and things like that. But they bought machining equipment, and they refurbed it. That's what they did. And so they were at, I don't know if you was there that time or if anybody listening was, but that was pretty neat, because they had some machines there. There were old machines, but they'd gone through them and got them put back into shape, and they were rock solid and usable.
Oh, you mean they had like the actual mills there at the show?
Yeah, they had some mills and lathes, and
I didn't see that.
Several things. Yeah,
that'd be neat. I probably I would have looked at that, because I've seen a couple of YouTube things where people with there's a whole thing of YouTube where people have elaborate shops, and butcher boards or cutting boards and stupid shit, with like massive shops. It's like watching Woodwright shop from back in the Yankee Workshop from back in the old days.
Right.
Those kind of shows. And they'll have, some, like a couple of those shows have taken like old stuff, like you're saying, like the 30s or something, and then fixed a couple of 3 things on it, and then just sandblasted it and repainted it, maybe put a new motor, but sometimes not even put a new motor.
Yeah.
And, basically just put WD-40 on it and clean it. Anyway, those are super neat, especially, the mills are neat, but I've also seen some of the other stuff like for Foreman metal and stuff, because those, it's just like anything. Machinists appreciate old tools, so they're going to treasure the old tool for what it can do, the way it can do it or whatever. So anyway, it's neat to watch those shows where people that know what they're doing appreciate the stuff that they're doing.
Right.
But if I had room for it. Maybe I'll talk a little bit off air tonight about a project. I don't know if Angelina's still out there. She should jump in for that, because I'll be mansplaining what Angelina should do, because I got opinions on what she should be doing. But it'd be neat to have a shop, big, maybe 3,000 square feet would be, I think, about right. I don't want to make it too big, so I don't want to have to heat something ridiculously. But one floor, 2,000, 3,000 square feet, I think that would be a pretty awesome shop. Like enough room to do stuff with size. You could build a canoe in there, but not so big that you can put like 8 cars in there necessarily.
All right.
But anyway, that would be kind of neat to have some machinery for, I don't know what the hell to do with it, but it'd be neat to have some machinery, to have access to some machinery maybe. Anyway, that's not guns either. So anything else from the list over here? We're about an hour something in. At this point, we're legally, we've done enough 2A to be better than the daytime shows. Did you guys say something about Walt before when I was leaving before? Did anybody watch his video about top 3 things wrong with American gun culture?
Yep.
I did not like that video. I think Walt's anti-gun now. So you didn't watch it, Clover?
No, I haven't.
Barbecue watched it though? Oh, he left. He isn't 2A either.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, so you guys like that video? You agree with that video?
I agree with his opinion. Yeah.
Well, who the hell? Of course, he's just like, oh, it's horrible to be violent with guns, of course. But he's like, basically starts the video out like, oh, I don't like this whole idea of drinking a bunch of beers and going to the range. I'm like, what the fuck? And when did that become a thing? Like, I've never heard in my entire life of let's drink a bunch of beers and go to the range. Like, I don't even care. Like a comedy sketch, like a weird old guy, like a bum, like a drunk. I know plenty of drunks, and none of them would say like let's drink a bunch of beers. I mean, I know people that hang out with drunks and they don't together say shit like that. Never even heard that.
Yep.
Completely
the closest, that's what I was going to say, the closest I've ever seen was like it was the weekend at deer camp.
No, that's different. Yeah. Maybe like after shooting.
But you're not drinking beer in the deer stand.
No, after drinking beer all day, that's like you go basically deer camp was you go stand up in a tree above a salt lick, and if you get a big enough deer, you shoot it, and if you don't, you sit there, and then at night you go drink beers.
Right.
Like, but that wasn't like let's all drink a bunch of beers and go sit in a deer stand. That was the conception or the perception that that non-gun people thought was going on, and especially if like there was ever an accident, right? Taking weapons up and down trees, there can never be an accident. So then, of course, it was the drunks or whatever, and you'd have like a weird uncle that everybody would joke around, and of course, whatever. But anyway, I don't know where he got that idea.
Yeah, I don't either. It's definitely not a thing.
Have you guys heard of it as a thing before? Are we not aware of it?
Only deer camp.
So Walt is this guy who's probably the future at 2A. He's the one that I don't have to do 2A anymore because of Walt. Shoot stuff, then drink beer. Maybe like duck season. That might be a thing too. But yeah, certainly like.
Yeah, any of the hunting is going to be at night. What do you do in the
but I mean,
camp,
camping is at night. You go drinking beers, and 4-wheel driving at night. You go drinking beers. Canoeing at night. You go drinking beers. I mean, that's just American.
Well, and you're not gonna. Here's the other thing, though. If you're at deer camp and you've got to get up and at the an hour, 2 hours before daybreak, right, the next morning, you're not. It's not like you're going to drink yourself silly. Because you've got to get up, so you're not going to want to. Well, there was
the I guess that's where I just assumed he was talking about is because there were the people that would drink too much and then just not wake up because they really didn't care about hunting, and that's the other thing. Some people go hunting because they just want to get away, and they're not allowed to say I want to go on a vacation for 3 days, but they are allowed to say I'm going hunting with the guys because everybody else is going hunting. I've known these guys since I was in high school. That is the dirty little secret of hunting, just like it's the dirty little secret of a bunch of other things that sometimes people participate just because they don't want to have to do what that gives them the excuse to not do, right?
Right, yeah.
And when those people go hunting, nobody cares that they sit around the camp sleeping all day or whatever the hell they're doing on their vacation because they're not bothering anybody, but they're definitely not drinking a bunch of beers and then shooting. Because at number one, you'd be blowing away, you'd be pissing off all the hunters. Like, you don't just go shoot when you go hunting. You shoot when there's a critter, and then you seriously debate if you're going to shoot at that critter first, right? Like, shoot at every critter. But anyway, there was that, and of course, he was like, "Oh, I don't like it when people drink and shoot." It's like, of course, who the fuck wants that? But that's one of them crazy false dilemmas or whatever the word is. Like, of course, who's not going to be? So then his second point was sexualization and movies. So my answer was sexualization of violence is mostly from Hollywood, and they choose to buffoon guns when they do that. And because there's a complete void up until recently, very recently, there was a complete void of anything. Gun people didn't make content. So all we had was movies and shit. So we picked the stuff that was like, closest to being valid or like the least annoying, or every once in a while something would pop up that even though it was bad, it was still cool. So we would put it into our, whatever it's called, into the gun community. So I said, so people had to use some of those posters. So he's talking about the sexualization and violence that all came from Hollywood, the same way that I've never in my entire life seen a car explode, except every movie I watch, cars explode, and like every television show, cars explode, right? Like that's the same way of sex and violence. like every biker is the worst extreme parody of a biker. Every drug user is the worst extreme parody. Every lawyer is the worst, right? Like that's just the way Hollywood does things. And of course they're going to do that with guns. And then I go on to him later and go, he says something with music, and it basically applies to music. But then he says gun bunnies is his third thing, because he was like, I have 3 things to talk about. Gun bunnies. And I'm like, dude, gun bunnies haven't been a thing for at least 12 years. And just because you can pick like an existing gun bunny or 2 doesn't mean that that's still a thing. Like that's the I mean, that's so old. Like literally that's a thing from the 80s.
I don't know.
It barely existed in the 90s, and it hasn't existed at all in the 2000s, really.
Right. I mean, you've got those outlier examples of chicks that try to do it.
Yeah.
But there's nobody that is successful at doing it now.
You're right. It's the people that think, or that used to do it or something, that think it can be a thing. But then again, that's grasping at straws, and I'm almost offended to think that like that would be the perception, or at least on like I couldn't even imagine that someone would have that perception of gun owners still. Not when we got like the DC project. And come on, have you walked through SHOT Show in the last 20 years, for crying out loud? Like,
come on, man.
There's no gun bunnies. Yeah, exactly. Come on, man. And then the last thing was he was talking about music. So even though he said he had top 3 things, he had 4 things. He goes something about music, exaggerating guns and stuff. And I said, music has historically been created by musicians behind enemy lines. So perhaps consider modern pro-gun messages from bands who understand guns and our culture for examples of where guns aren't dealt with ridiculously. Thinking of like the Marine Rapper, or some of the 5-Finger Death Punch, like people that have been in the service and come out and start bands, or like were in bands and went into service and came out and have authentic experience and aren't trying to glamorize stupid crap from Hollywood. So yeah, I was not happy with that video. I don't know if Walt was just turning a corner or what, but he's not here to defend himself, so we're just going to have to assume he's anti-gun. I really have no idea. But no, I don't know. It was 6 minutes of me going, what like 4 times at least, and then I wrote a furious paragraph or 4 paragraphs to respond to it.
I can touch on 2 things of those 4 topics.
Go ahead.
Number 1, I think not the drinking before going to the range, if that's what you said, not that, but drinking before going shooting. I know that is the thing in certain, I guess, groups. And I would say it's way more prevalent in the shotgun group, going skeet and trap shooting and shooting doves. There are places like in St. George where guys literally drink, go out and shoot a round of skeet and come back and drink some more. And like that's like, they have a bar in that place. So that's
okay. Well, I have seen bars at the skeet places and trap places, so I guess that could be a thing. It's sort of like golfing, right? Like you're gonna golf and then come in.
Exactly. And so I would say it kind of depends on what group you're in, and at the dove hunting places where they release the doves out of the little cage and you shoot live doves, drinking there's a big thing. I haven't seen it in other sportsmanship type things to deal with shooting. Only with the shotgun group of guys have I seen it be a thing, or like at deer camps, like you said, or something. But that's always after, The only thing I've ever seen where like, oh, you can drink before, during, and after is at the shotgun stuff.
Okay, well then that could be a thing, and that sounds like it's a bunch of snooty people who are basically
and they're not
over and picking up a shotgun. They're not really walking around being dangerous. Otherwise, we definitely hear about it constantly if they were having any problems. But we know there's only 300 violent exchanges with a firearm in a year anyway, and it's like I say, if it was 300 rich people, we'd know about it.
Well, and they have like such strict rules there. You're only allowed to put, 1 shell in your shotgun at a time, before it, you're like at those places, you're like, even if you have an over under, they don't have the double, the 2 birdies thing. Like they don't do that at all. It's single shot. So you're only allowed to put one shell in your shotgun. So, they're more strict.
Hook on that one then. If he's talking about snooty shotgun stuff, and he's in California, so we'll give him a pass. He's probably thinking about snooty shotgun drinking.
And then about the gun bunny thing, what a gun bunny used to be and what it was originally was a girl who was hired to stand outside of a booth at SHOT Show or at a gun show and sell a product when they had never shot a gun. They didn't know anything about guns, right? But they were hired to hold the gun and stuff, and guys would walk up and ask them about it like an idiot.
Like
right?
a spokesmodel, like the same girls that would go to the Kahr show and then the cement show, and
exactly. That's what a gun bunny was. Okay, and that's what a gun bunny is. As far as I'm concerned, I don't care what the fucking chick puts out on her social media, what clothes she wears, how she looks. The second she picks up a gun and actually starts shooting, she's not a gun bunny anymore. She's trying to learn about it. She's practicing with it. Fuck anyone that wants to call her a gun bunny. That's not a gun bunny. That's a gun owner.
That's the first time I've heard anybody mansplain that. Yeah, you did it well. So that's I'm gonna start agreeing with that 100%.
Like it's the truth. Fuck them for picking on some girl. I don't care how she dresses or how she promotes herself, whether you agree with it or not. The second they start using a gun, they're a gun owner. Quit trying to divide our community and and call them gun bunnies and this and that and putting labels on fucking people. A gun bunny's literally someone who's never shot a gun, who's hired to promote a gun. Like, that's what it is. Just like a car bunny or any of the other trade shows, they have the bunnies for all of them, But once they own a gun, they're a gun owner. Leave them alone.
So a bunch of people, what the hell? Screen, select windows or screen. So I'm on a new situation over here, so I'm trying to figure out how to screen share this. I think I just did it right now. If I do this, is that screen sharing? Yeah. So when you saw the thumbnail to the show today, right? A lot of people might have thought, "Oh, I messed it up."
I got a few words for some of our brothers.
I messed it up. But you seen the screen, the thumbnail for this show today was that little puppy petting some ducks, little baby ducks on the head, and I'm sure people were like, "Oh, look, they claimed that this show is 42% more compassionate. What do you call it? About whatever." And they're thinking, "Oh, he must mean Gizzard show because the little baby gizzards on there." But no, actually, turns out we are going to be compassionate to the gun chicks. So it's actually, we're petting little gun chicks on the head. I was trying to tie it into the thumbnail that we talked about, the better, new, evolved, woke definition of gun.
And I didn't watch this show, so I don't exactly know how he was putting stuff. I just heard what you said about it, But I didn't watch that. I didn't watch the video or whatever he put out, so I just know what you said about it. And then as far as about music, I think the music is a thing in certain groups of music because it seems like every other song can have negative things about guns and stuff in it. And
I don't deny it. I'm just saying. I was just saying that most of that is gone, written by people behind enemy lines that are dealing with either illegal guns or they got no real knowledge of guns, and that's I think it's just an effect of that. Like if it was, I bet you country music has more better, whatever you want to say, like more realistic lyrics about guns, right? Because they're probably more familiar with guns.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Or at least guns, speaking about guns in a gun way. Maybe not more familiar with guns, but more...
Not so much to deal with just random violence. Like, it's not even so much about the guns. It's about perpetrating violence with the guns that disturbs me. Like, I've heard some like songs where they'll actually talk about a gun and, kind of like, I guess, describe the gun, or the whole song's about a certain, brand of gun. But it's the ones where it's just like, about gun violence, I guess, where they just like the whole entire song's just about committing crimes with guns, and it's not like some kind of Billy the Kid thing either. It's some pretty I guess brutal stuff, and like I don't know. I think that kind of I don't know what the point of that is. I think that there's something behind it because it's very prevalent. So I think it's definitely
the environment. depending on what genre you're talking about, it speaks to the environment from which it comes.
You know, when you're talking about all the
Pre-recording.
violence in the whole country comes from 5 counties. So if you're either in those 5 counties or near those 5 counties or focusing on those 5 counties, then your experience of firearms is going to be drastically different than whoever that guy Walt was talking about, or the chicks that Walt was talking about that go to their fancy shotgun and wine parties, right? So,
Well,
and
it's
then
like,
I'm down with the idea of like being frustrated when gun lyrics are stupid, but I'm just as frustrated when like somebody who just uses gun lyrics as like because it rhymes or because they think, you know, whatever weird perception of guns or whatever their deal is, their hang up or something, and they'll say something dumb, you know, like clip or something, you know, just because it rhymes, and they don't really care. So I get that's the problem with gun nerds, right? Is we're gonna be tuned into the gun part because, you know what I'm saying? Like they might, any song that's describing the situation is going to be, what do you call it? Like using describing the things that are there, the stuff that they see, their cars and their, you know, houses and their fences and their mailmen. I don't know, whatever the hell, you know, is part of the scenario. So as soon as we hear guns, it doesn't matter who it is and what scenario. As soon as we hear guns, you know, we're going to tune into that. But anyway, Walt was, he could have just been minding his business. He's a youngin'. He's like 20 years old or something. I don't know how old he is. He's a youngin'. So he's probably hasn't shot a revolver yet, right? So he lives in California. I don't know if he's seen rifles or whatever. So that might have been the first time he ever even heard of somebody saying something like, oh, we're going to have our fancy wine and cheese party and we're going to shoot guns at the same time. And he might have been like, oh no, that's horrible. Let me make a video about it. Like, you know, that was the first time he's seen it. I don't know. But it wasn't, it was 6 minutes. It wasn't like he was ranting or anything. I just didn't agree with him on it. Let's see. So also are attractive pro-gun ladies supposed to do, what are they supposed to do? Ugly themselves up to be more legit to the menfolk? Well, that's a good question. It is a good question for us, for dudes to answer. So we can come up with an answer for that should be.
okay, here's a simple way to put it. So let's say you have an attractive lady that's outgoing and on social media, and you have maybe a not so attractive lady who isn't as outgoing on social media, and they both get into guns at the same time. They both start buying guns, shooting guns. Well, one of them is more likely to share that experience on their social media, right? Like, it's only logical if they're already using social media and they're already aware of that and into it. So, you know, does that all of a sudden make her a gun bunny because she's like showing her new interest? Like, you know, I don't think so, you know, but that doesn't mean that there's not other women out there who aren't doing the same thing. But I just can imagine how many new women might buy a gun and then want to, like, they post a picture of it, you know, of them with it or something, and then they get, I've seen it 1,000 times, and they just get hammered on by men. Oh, you're holding it wrong, or you're doing this, or you should be doing that, da-da-da, you're just a gun bunny, and it's like, man, what a way to scare them out of our community. Like, no wonder why there's hardly any women that ever join any of the gun chats or gun shows. We know there's a lot of women gun owners out there, but they sure don't seem to be very prevalent in our community when it comes to the 2A.
I like this. So I'm going to just throw this in here because I'm not a chick, but I get sick of these shows too. So number one, it's boring as hell hearing about whatever crap gun people bought. I know it's fun. I mean, I used to understand it, but I mean, imagine you're having fun talking about whatever gun you bought. At some point, you don't need any more guns, or you don't want any more guns, right? You don't hate guns, you just don't need any more. And then people keep talking about the guns they bought. So it's like, all right. But then years go by, and it's like, at some point, I'm sick of hearing about everybody's new freaking thing. So imagine being a chick who probably doesn't care that much. And let's just assume all chicks are the same, right? So some chick comes in and she's like, I'm interested in maybe how you carry or when, right? Because new gun owners is one thing. New concealed carry person, different, right? We know that. That's a different set of new circumstances and new lifestyle to deal with. Now, if you're both at the same time and you come in and everybody's talking about what's comfortable for them, what I just fucking bought or why ammo and my opinion on this and what somebody said in a fucking video 5 minutes ago, and I'm done. Like, that's every topic that ever happens on the daytime chats. And you tell me if I'm wrong. Occasionally that you can find an outlier, but it's what I bought, what I want to buy, how much ammo costs, what somebody else said on another chat. So somebody coming into the community, I don't care what gender they are, I don't care what caliber they like, I don't care how old they are, I don't care what state they're in, that's mind-numbingly boring. I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. Nobody listening to this knows that I like that. Everybody who watches this or listens to this knows my opinions on this. I'm not surprising anybody, but that's seriously more than nobody's. I mean, we can have conversations where we'll be like maybe rude to chicks because it's all guys and stuff. But seriously, like, I've been into chats, or not in chats, I've been around people who are into motorcycles or food, like other things, that I'm not that into, but I'm hanging around with them and they're talking about it, and they'll get way more sexist than we will. I mean, we're certainly not the most sexist of all the people out in the world. In fact, we're probably more woke in a lot of ways because we're so worried about bringing our wives and our daughters and our friends that are females into the gun owning that we are aware that they need to learn from other females, and they have different bodies, so their holsters are going to be different, and they're going to want to carry off body, and they can't be mansplained to. Like, we're way aware of that, and we're good and bad at different levels. But certain other communities don't give a shit. Like, they're not interested in having women in. They don't care. Their daughters aren't doing it. So they're just rude and rowdy. So we're not that bad. And I just wanted to throw that out there, that half the time it's not that we're rowdy or mean or we're farting or we're rude, because chicks will throw down and be fun with everybody. We've seen that with a lot of the chicks that hang out with us. We're just mind-numbingly boring. We talk about the same fucking shit constantly. I can't imagine. You can't even know how refreshing it was for you and Dave and a couple of other people to talk about reloading as passionately as you did. And after a while, it definitely got repetitive because you guys were having similar discussions or evolving the same discussions. So, I'm saying, like, it wasn't like always golden, but it was definitely such a refreshing change from the same old 5 fucking patterns of shit that we constantly talk about. And, throw politics in there, I guess, occasionally. But, luckily, we don't have politics as often as all that in the last few years. So anyway, the rare that we ever get somebody come in to talk about a valid, different subject that lasts for any length of time more than about 5 minutes. But anyway, so I just want to throw that out there for anybody who might be in other chats. And if you see a chick come around, what do chicks like to talk about in real life? Like, start talking about some of that. Or find out from them what they're there for. Because like I say, if they're there to talk about legal issues or how do you deal with kids and storage around the house, how do you deal with a car and a gun, somebody who's new, doesn't matter what gender or age or any of that other stuff, they're not going to come into a conversation and be like, hey, everybody who's familiar with each other, how about y'all shut up and let me ask you my questions, right? So it's just us. We haven't really, like I say, we've been nice and decent about it, but we just haven't I shouldn't say that. I think have. I was going to say we haven't stopped our conversations to say, hey, what's, new girl in the conversation? What do you want to talk about? But I don't want to accuse us of that either, because I know we have definitely stopped our conversations and made sure that the chicks that came around got attention, right?
Well, I think so. I think we try to be accommodating, but I also think it's.
But I mean, as a group, gun owners probably just bore the shit out of them. But go ahead.
Oh yeah, I think it's like you mentioned earlier, we're aware because we have wives that we've brought in and daughters and stuff like that. I think that's most of the culprits I've seen, being the offenders are the younger guys who don't have a wife and a daughter yet, who haven't just reached that maturity level, I would say,
sure,
or that life experience,
Yeah.
And it's us, and it's either that we wait for them to get to that level to have their own wife and daughter and then realize it for themselves, or we have to make sure we're the person to, I guess, look up to or be the example, and set the example for any of those guys doing that. That's why I'm not afraid to correct someone when I hear someone, calling someone else a gun bunny or whatever, or being this derogatory and a, negative, and basically chasing them out of our community. I'm pretty vocal against that, so.
Well, you've been around a long time too. That brings up another point that, barking at somebody for being weird, or like barking at somebody in a chat for just, doing something dumbass. Sometimes they leave, but I would say I'm trying to think of it now because there's so many instances over the years, but I'm thinking maybe 60 or 70% of the time they stick around, right?
Oh,
like
yeah.
Some people definitely leave, but I think a lot of people, they understand the correction. It's just like anything when you're playing sports or if you're doing something as a group and you're like, hey, calm your fucking jets there, hip hop. And then it's like, you're not really fucking telling somebody like, I don't like you. You're just saying like, hey, calm down over there, hip hop.
Yeah. Well, sometimes it's just like there's a thing in sports, like in baseball or anything, I guess, probably other sports too, but it's called the unwritten rules, right? Like if you're up by more than like 8 runs, you don't intentionally walk a batter. You don't like, there's these unwritten rules that they have in some sports. And it's kind of like that in different community. There's going to be some unwritten rules and you're not going to know them until you get involved in that community, so you just got to learn
break them or watch somebody break
them. Yeah. That's how you learn, it's just, I think that I will definitely agree with you about how accommodating our, at least a lot of the people I've been around on gun channels have been over the years to all sorts of different people, whether it was language barriers, different races, sex, religions. I mean, the whole gambit. I mean, super accommodating, and we're very diverse, because we're so accommodating and nice. And, we have people all around the world that we've talked to in these chats, and just, literally all around the world. And that is just so cool to, that's one thing I enjoy about chats like this, is like when we'll get some guy from Australia to join, or New Zealand or China or something, that makes it really interesting when we get to learn about, what's going on in their country and, what they're doing for firearms and ammo and stuff like that over there. I mean, I really like those chats. And that's how accommodating we are. They're willing to come into a, not only just a group of guys they don't know, but literally a different country or language.
And area of topic or whatever that might be different or weird.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to go around and say I like it. I mean, I don't dislike it, but it's not like I wake up every day and wonder what's going on in Europe. I will admit that. I mean, I don't hate Europe, but I don't care.
Well, that's why it's so interesting, because it doesn't happen all the time. It's rare, but when it does, it's, that's why it's interesting, is because it's not something we normally talk about or look up.
Like if I would have sat down in some time, like somebody in the future would have gone back to my past life and said to me, what do you plan? What's going to happen with all this stuff you're going to be doing online? I wouldn't have even really thought about Europe or whatever, or people from foreign countries coming in. But then, like you say, it's always been, I can't even think, except for one weird guy with the 50 guy, right? Like, except for that one guy, like everything else has been pretty much positive, right? And, knock on wood, of course. But, anyway, that's just me. I just don't happen to give that much of a shit about Europe. But I was just going to say that you're right. Like, that is actually super interesting when it happens. And it would actually be interesting for someone who is digging that, like somebody who would really dig that, to do a show where you just say like, hey, international gun questions in the USA. Like, you come from, like, I'm going to go live with these people from the USA and we're from these states. Maybe even have everybody change their icons to like a state shape or something so that everybody can see what states you're coming from, and then let it be Q&A from the rest of the world. That would actually be, like I say, that's not my cup of tea, but that would be actually a freaking neat thing. I don't think I've seen anybody ever even come near that before.
Well, it used to be interesting for me just to meet people from other states. And then eventually I got to know like people from, almost every state pretty much, right? So, you know,
You know what we do need though? We've never had. I don't think I've been thinking about this. We've never had anybody from Iowa ever, have we? There's never been anyone from Iowa on the internet, as far as I'm aware.
they may not have internet there yet.
Seriously, all of gun channels, all of gun chat before gun channels. I can't think of anybody on YouTube who's Iowa. I mean, there must be people in Iowa. Brownells is in freaking Iowa, but except for Brownells, and they never come around here. They could care less about anything I've ever done. But Brown, except for that store, and dang it, I was going to say, I think when I went to Illinois one time, somebody mentioned that they were in Iowa. But I can't remember for the life of me because I was on the road, and I think they said that. They might have also said they were in Illinois and they traveled to Iowa. But anyway, that's just when you said that about the states. I'm pretty sure I can think of somebody from every other state that's been in gun channels and stuff. And there must have been somebody in gun channels probably from Iowa. They just never showed up and said anything. Or at least if they did show up, nobody ever mentioned that they were from Iowa, right? Anyway, just a weird hole in the middle of the country that we've never had anybody participate. And you know they're shooting guns in Iowa, right?
Oh yeah, all that cornfield, and I think that's what they grow there mostly is corn, isn't it?
Well, the one time I went in through Iowa, I don't know what the road that Brownells is on, but I think I went from Omaha across whatever that road is, I think. Then it isn't all that flat. Like there's some terrain in Iowa. It's not mountainy, but there's like gullies and cliffs and stuff. Like there's terrain. But yeah, lots and lots and lots of open land. But not all farm fields either, is I guess what I'm getting at. Like it seems like there's tons of places to shoot in Iowa. I'm sure there's a ton of hunting there too. Maybe they're just so busy having fun they don't even go online. All rectangle shapes, I don't trust them.
That's where. Oh no, it's not. I was gonna say, isn't that where The Simpsons is supposed to be from? Is Iowa? But I think it's Ohio.
No, they just say Springfield, I think, and leave it. But whenever you say that, Woods will come up or not Woods. Somebody in Oregon will come up and tell you that it's from Oregon, I think.
I thought it was Illinois.
Well, I mean, there's a Springfield in most of the states. There's a Springfield, but there's like something about, I think it was one of the towns in Oregon where like most of the characters actually are. Like there's the guy who's there's the rich guy and there's the bartender. Like I think there's actually, like, I think that's where Groening lived too. So they figure that's where a lot of it was based. But it was never in the cartoon or anything. That's just like inference based on what the characters look like and what the real life is like. But I think one time they zoomed in on Illinois, Kentucky or something in one of the episodes. And that got people thinking it meant Illinois or Kentucky.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't remember anymore. That's a long time. Matt would maybe know something. Pink is talking about when Catch came in and walked to the store and bought the suppressor that time. We always talk about that.
Yeah.
But Catch did way more than that. I mean, he's done a lot.
Oh, yeah, he joined a bunch of different times.
Well, I mean, he's done interesting stuff while in these conversations too. Plus, he came to the United States, hung out with me and Bob, and I think he came to the United States a second time. Whenever that movie that I got paid to go be in the gun show in this movie, that movie was made in Mexico and then distributed internationally, so I couldn't even watch the movie. But Catch went to I forgot where he went, like Sweden or somewhere, to go watch this movie. Or maybe Amsterdam. I don't know. He went somewhere to go watch it at like some kind of film festival. So he got to this dude that was, from whatever, halfway across the freaking world, got to watch a movie that was made in Mexico that we filmed in Arizona, or that was filmed in Arizona before we got to see it in Arizona.
I met a guy in Russia who made me a custom ingot mold, I didn't even ask him to, but he uploaded videos to YouTube of him milling out my mold, and I thought that was just the neatest thing, actually being able to watch my mold being made. You know, like
what mold? What kind of mold?
An ingot mold, a single cavity ingot mold to make 1 or 17-ounce ingots of lead.
Oh, okay. There's a dude who hangs out in this chat. He might not be up anymore, but who can do that kind of stuff. If you ever need anything new like that.
Heck yeah. I like kind of like that custom one-off stuff, you know, especially someone who's willing to take a video of it and put it on YouTube so I can literally watch it being made. I thought that was just the neatest thing. Like, I don't think I've ever had that happen before where someone's like, oh, you ordered this thing from me? Like, by the way, here's some videos of it being made. Like, like I just thought that really tickled me. I thought that was awesome.
So no, Walt's saying he's trying to defend himself. Never heard of a drunk guy shooting a gun in their backyard at something they didn't mean to. I mean, I guess so, but I don't know anybody that drinks and goes in their backyard. I might beat myself. I know people that go in their backyard and shoot, but I guess I don't know anybody that drinks and does it. I mean, it must happen. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I just don't know anybody that does it.
Or at least anyone that admits to it. I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if you can shoot in your backyard, what the hell? How would anybody really know? Unless they did something horrible or, like got in trouble or something or did something as an accident. Like, say that you wouldn't know. But I don't know. He's still 2A, I guess, a little bit. So now we got 10 people out there. Pink is still out there. Garrett's out there. Net Flutter. Well, we're at hour 46. Yesterday was a 10-minute show, so I will shut it off if no one says anything. We're not trying to prove nothing here. We don't get any extra credit for going long, but we don't get any credit for going short either. So we got topics, we talk. We don't got topics, we end it.
Well, I don't even really know what to talk about. It's been too cold for me to do anything here, really. Like, I went shooting the other day. I went shooting on Sunday, or I guess the day before, yesterday, and I shot a bunch of 22s, and it was fun. That's all I've done. It's been too cold to.
For a while there, you were buying a bunch of black powder stuff. Do you only use that for hunting? You don't go over and just shoot that stuff?
Oh no, I do. Yeah, especially right now. It's super cheap, and I cast all my own round ball and some 350 grain Lee reel bullets. I cast for it.
All right, so here's what I do. When I used to go shooting all the time, I would just take the black powder whatever, Derringer, whatever you call it, black powder pistol, a single barrel, black powder with caps, because you can get caps probably still, right?
Oh, percussion caps
Yeah.
are actually hard to find right now, but you can still find them, easier than primers, but they're sold out most places.
Okay, so assuming they weren't sold out, those things is all you need and some powder, because what I would do is I have from one of the cannons I bought one time, somebody took a 9mm case and wrapped some wire around the rim sort of so that it turned it into like a ladle, like a little scooper. So it's the enough powder to fill a 9mm case is like how much this little scooper can hold. Mm-hmm. And then I'll take that and shove it into one 9mm case worth of powder into my pistol, I guess. And then the cap, the percussion cap. But then I take a 7.62 by 39 laying off the ground, because there's a million of them out where you go shooting because nobody picks them up. And I'll just shoot those things backwards. So primer first coming out of it, and they're not inaccurate. Like, I can shoot steel with them from a distance. I mean, they take a little while to load, but they cost zero. They cost whatever a percussion cap and a little thing of powder costs.
And I've never even thought of doing that.
Yeah, so I'll throw that out there because that'll save you a lot of lead if you have fun doing that. Assuming you can get a whole bunch of steel cases someplace, because I guess not everywhere is filthy with them. Out here, for the longest time, there was like in Tucson, I've mentioned it before, we have a lot of different people that want to use our public shared lands. So there was like a couple of shooting areas that were sort of like officially shooting places, and people would go clean them and people would go abuse them. And for the most part, everybody knew to use these three places, and it was enough to support the shooters around here. And although people cleaned up most of it, they never clean up clay pigeon shit. Like the red clay pigeon shit lasts forever. It's made out of asphalt, so you might as well just take asphalt and dump it into the desert because it's never going away. And then steel case ammo, like so, mostly 7.62 by 39 would just be carpeting the areas. Occasionally somebody will go out there with like a rolling magnet for picking up nails on a job site and pick some of it up, but it's just everywhere and it's rusty and it's just in the ground, so it doesn't come up with a magnet necessarily, so it's just everywhere out there. So I can just pick up the nastiest, grossest piece because that'll actually fill the barrel a little better. Like a nice clean piece kind of slops around in my barrel. I don't know what I have, a 40 maybe, and I don't want it to be sticking in there at all. I want it to just fall out basically if I point it down. But yeah, and I'm also, when I'm shooting those, I'm almost always shooting up a little bit, like into the hill. So I guess if I was shooting down, it probably would fall out. But anyway, super cheap, and I really like shooting them. Like I said, every once in a while you get a flyer, but that'll kind of happen on a black powder gun anyway. Even with a ball, it'll wing a flyer.
Oh yeah. One thing where Gun Library Garrett's comment out there about shooting cannons, that's actually probably one of my next things I'm going to get into this summer, is I've been researching it, and you need a nitrogen bottle, and you cut that, make that your
size.
that shoots. You want to use the nitrogen bottle because it's the right size and it's a thicker walled cylinder to hold like 42,000 kilopascals of pressure. So you want to use the right size tank, and then you cut it, and then you buy 8-pound bowling balls, which is the most common size, especially for bowling alleys. That's what like most people use at bowling alleys, and they're the cheapest because they're the lightest too. And you can buy them used from bowling alleys, I guess, and used online and stuff all over, just really cheap, and get them free a lot of places.
Well, the 8-pounders are probably, they'll have more of them for the kids that are learning because
they'll give
them all the
Well, even a lot of adults, I think, wing those things. They like to wing up.
Yeah, for like any kind of training class, you're going to want like a whole class full of little ones so they don't have to think about it.
But those and you buy some fuse, and I already have powder, and then you have to weld some legs on it. And you can get fancy. Sky's the limit as soon as you start talking about your stand and actually being able to tilt it and lock it in place and having a good stand. That's
most of the time they mortar those because you can shoot it.
Oh yeah.
But then you have recoil, so you have to do something to keep it from pushing backwards, right? And then when you lob it, it doesn't go as far, so you can actually watch. They shoot those kind of things at Big Sandy all the time, and at night you put they'll duct tape what do you call them, glow sticks into the finger holes so you can watch them as they fly, and during the day you can watch them because they're a big ass bowling ball, and then they hit something, so that's cool too. Out where you're at, you could probably put like a bed sheet out there and shoot at it or something.
Yeah, I think that would be really fun. And there's some other things you can shoot out of them. I was watching people shoot some like big cantaloupe and stuff like that out of one.
Well, my cannons are the size of your hand. My biggest one would be like, Sharpie. Well, maybe bigger than that, but not much bigger than like a marker. Like they're little. They're for the desktop, or they're mainly for like making noise. But you can put something in them and they'll shoot it. So I'll usually shoot. I have like I don't know what it is. It's probably a 30-06 bullet or projectile, and I've had it forever. It's just some 30 cal projectile. I really don't know what bullet it is, and it just looked kind of like a cannon shell, and I don't even know where I got it. So probably got it at a gun show or some gun shop I was at sometime. Anyway, I got it and I keep shooting it, and it's about black at this point. Every once in a while it'll get a little clean, but it because the black powder soots it all up really bad, and it's way smaller than the diameter needs to be, so it definitely gets caked every time I shoot it. But I can shoot that thing across a room at a box, and it'll hit the box in one side and not come out the other side. So I can basically, I have like 3 or 4 of them. I'll shoot those things at a box, and then I get paranoid because it sounds too loud in here, and it usually by 3 or 4 shots it smokes up your house so bad you don't want to keep shooting it. Outside they're too loud. It's sort of like a gunshot. So it's not a gunshot, but I imagine some dumbass would think it's a gunshot. So I don't shoot them too often outside, but they're basically not much different than shooting a black powder pistol, except you don't hold it, you set it on the table. And I use wick also. And mine hold, like I was saying, like a 9mm case, so just the case filled with gunpowder or black powder. That's how much they hold. So, and the bullet isn't tight, so it just basically kind of goes pop really loud and blows a bunch of smoke all over. But it's super fun. Super fun. So you don't have to be out of town. You can do that in your backyard, I think, unless you live
I
somewhere.
saw people do it. The videos I've seen, a lot of people look like they were doing it on their kitchen tables.
Yeah, we do it inside. I do it inside all the time. It's just like I say, it shoots so much black powder into the air that you can only do it a few times before.
Could you use a black powder substitute, like the Pyrodex? Like,
you know what? I don't even know. I bought some triple T or 4T. I don't remember which one it is. Like whenever I first bought my first cannon, I'm only like a third of the way through that whole can. Like you only use a 9mm thing at a time.
Oh yeah.
And you get bored shooting it. So most I've ever shot it is if there was a bunch of people around, like, maybe 10 times. You get sick of shooting them. I have a couple of them, so maybe we'll shoot a couple of them a couple of times, and then they're like, it loses its interest. It's interesting, but it's not the funnest thing in the world or nothing. It might be different when you're talking the larger one, though. So, and that's the thing is, it would be a whole different thing because you're probably talking closer to a pound of powder to shoot a bowling ball. I mean, I don't know how much they put in those things, but it's got to be significantly more than I'm using.
Yeah, it's like some of the things I was watching was anywhere from like 1/4 ounce to like 12-ounce charges, anywhere in there depending on the weight. So almost a pound.
So that's a whole different scale, and that just means it's way more fun. And you're shooting a bowling ball like way over there, like really far away. So that's pretty neat. And it's nothing. It's not even a gun. It's nothing near a gun. It's
what I was thinking of doing for mine is they have these really tiny little trailers that with these. I mean, they're not wide at all. They're a normal trailer's 4 or 5 feet wide. I mean, these ones are only like 2.5 feet wide. Have you ever seen those, like being pulled behind a car or truck or something? These really skinny little trailers.
Like a motorcycle trailer.
Yeah, like a motorcycle trailer, but even shorter than that. And but I was thinking about just buying one of those trailers and then making that the actual base. Like, that's welding it to that, and it'd be easy to haul around and move, and
What about like the thing that a cement mixer is put on? Because that's designed to go on the road, and it's not as wide as a regular trailer usually.
Yeah, I would definitely like something I can just pull behind me and just not have to actually lift it up, because you have to make them pretty. Like a lot of the guys were having to add a lot of weight to their bases, or the whole thing would flip over and back on itself and roll.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's a lot of equal and opposite motion, right?
Oh yeah, and so you want to direct a lot of the force into the ground as much as possible, but they are also only shooting at like 35 or 37 degree angles to get like the maximum range, and so so they did have a tendency to want to flip on themselves unless you made the base nice and long. But if it was hooked up to a trailer, I mean, leave it hooked up to your vehicle, to your truck.
I only got to the 2-hour mark. Did Barbecue ditch out of here? Yep. The show was 2A for him. He left. So it looks like Walt is out there trying to defend his 2A hood. Pink is still out there. And Garrett is happy that we're still going. But I feel like since we're hitting the 2-hour mark, we got to mope again and demand topics or subjects to talk about. Or we'll threaten to get out of here. We'll threaten to end the whole show. Even though Garrett is hemorrhaging money at us. Appreciate that. Thanks for that. I have to do a thing on this channel to see how many super chats. I was in, there's like a membership thing on YouTube. So I was in there turning that on, figuring out how you do that. And I figured out you can see all your super chats in there, that same like window or whatever. So there was, I forget now, 18 super chats on the big channel last year, $87. So I'm guessing Garrett's dropped $5 in this show quite a few times too. So I'll bet you there's some bucks over on this side too. So I'm gonna do something similar on this side to say thanks, because it's not that many people. So I do appreciate it. I think DJ was a half of them. DJ and Walt are half of them on the big channel. I don't know how the membership works. It'll probably be the same where YouTube takes like a third for doing the process. And they give you little icons to play with, so that's the incentive over there, is that when people chat. I joined Clover's, and I think that's it so far. And so he has little Clover icons and stuff, like whatever he put up there. I forget, like the little teddy bear is one of them. And you can use it in his chats, but I thought it would have been cool if you could go to another chat and use Clover's icons because you're a member of Clover's. Like, that would be cool. And then people would be like, dang, where'd you get that teddy bear? And then you'd be like, I got that at Clover's. You have to be a member over there.
That would probably be a good idea. They'll probably do that.
I think they might, because I've noticed that I can't do it in here because I'm in the duck right now. But if you're in YouTube and you click on, back in the day, we used to put like a pancake in the little wind thing to be pancake farts or whatever, or like the little turtle eating chocolate. We'd use the little cartoons. So that was like a thing for a minute. Whenever they first put those cartoons in there, we all played with them, and then it's got a pain in the ass. You have to click on that thing and you have to find them. So I quit using them a while ago. But whenever I joined Clover's thing, you get a stupid heart. Like that's someone he put up for the first one. And it looks like Facebook, or it looks like Instagram. Once we start chatting, there's all these hearts floating by. So I went in there and I was like, I want to put something else besides the heart, because I didn't get it. I thought you could flip over, right, the icons, because I knew you could. When I was setting it up, you can get like 5 icons in there. I thought you could just pick the icon, so I was going to go pick something besides the heart, and then I figured out you have all these other icons, but it's not like that. You have to put it in the text each time. It's like you can just pick them. But anyway, that's the thing, is you can pick them. So when you go down there and click on the wrong thing here. When you go down there to add one of the little cartoons, now Clovers are included in the cartoons you can choose from. And they're in like a special layer. They're kind of like separate from all the other ones. So that's where I was like, oh, that's cool. Like maybe these will just be here every time I go to another chat. But then I went to a different chat and they weren't there. I gotta close this. 5 icons in there. I thought you could. Oops. And then, what the hell's all this? I guess that deletes them. Oh, what I gotta do is log into this channel first. Flipping over. Oh, I gotta do that separately, I guess. Dang it. I'll just do it from here. I don't know what that is. I don't feel like translating it, but weird. There we go. So let's see. Woods is putting 5 bacons in there. I don't know what that's for. I'm guessing that's a Woods salad. And then Garrett is saying, are all the Capitals doing a thing tomorrow? No, I don't know of anybody doing anything tomorrow. There's some sort of false flag situation where they're trying to act like there was going to be, but I don't remember ever hearing and never seen anybody do anything except, adamantly say there's nothing going on and that there was nothing ever planned. A couple of people that would sometimes go live to do stuff have not even talked about like covering it. So I don't think there's any attention, but there's also like no negative attention. There's just like a void. Like people just are not even paying attention to it. So I can't imagine anything will happen tomorrow. Uh-oh, here comes Walt.
I can't stir up that amount of shit without popping in to say hey.
Right on. So yeah. So anyway, like I said, I don't know. Is it the latter? I don't know if you've been listening to the whole thing. Is it just that you've seen something and it was like you'd never even heard of it before and you were like so adamantly against it? Or is this something that's you've seen your whole life and it's just finally the last straw, and you made a video?
Yeah, so that video was a subscribe star request, and I wanted to approach the question I think as broadly as I possibly could, because there's a more, I think, like narrow definition of gun culture, which is the idea that you have a right to a firearm. You have a right to practice your rights, right? And there's this like kind of notion, I think, like starting really heavily in the 70s, I think, when the term got coined. Of course, we could easily, and I think justifiably so, say that the idea of being able to defend yourself, practice your rights, own property, things like that are obviously way prior to 1970, right? But I think the term gun culture got coined around then, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, my goal was just to say, hey.
Well, okay.
Oh yeah, so my goal was just to say, hey, there's some things in culture and like America's gun culture, if I look at it very holistically, like how does America see firearms that I don't like? And I think that there's a lot of things that we could talk about. There's obviously like how lawmakers see guns, and we don't like their paradigms on a lot of this stuff. We don't like a lot of other things. There were a lot of areas that would have been low-hanging fruit that I think kind of would have dodged the question in the eyes of the asker who wanted to know. So I was like, hey, let's keep it a little more on like popular culture and everyday type stuff. I had an advertisement about 2 days ago come by my Facebook, and it was a ladies shoot. And what it was drinking wine, starting off with a wine tasting and then ending with like with a range day. And I'm like, well, maybe do the wine tasting after the range day. Maybe don't drink first. Maybe don't advertise the drinking as first. Not to mention countless like backyard accidents. I've seen people straight up in like live streams and in chats get drunk and then flag themselves while they were drunk. I got countless stories of people drinking and showing off their guns after the range day when they thought they were all clear with the buddies, So when I was saying like alcohol and guns don't mix, and there's a lot of people in culture, in the gun culture, you could say, that do that. I think it gives ammo to our opposition when people do mix alcohol and firearms, which is why I don't like it. So it wasn't like me saying gun culture is bad. It was saying like, what would I change about it? I would just make sure that, like everyone that saw it that was like, wait, what the hell are you talking about? Those are the people that are not the problem. The people who are like, oh, I go knock back a few beers and go to the range. Like literally after I posted the video, I had someone in my chat be like, oh, I've totally gone to the range drunk. It's like, it's a thing that happens. And it shouldn't, because it makes us look bad. So that was my point with that. So
right on. Yeah, I just want to make sure it wasn't like you're aware of some like whole culture of people that are doing this, or like it's something that some fad of the youngins that I didn't know about.
I hope to God it's not. Like most of the things too, like the other things that I criticize, it was mostly like, again, like things where it's more like things like this is where society is. And I think like everyone here is down to probably change those things if I had to guess. So like, most of, like, as far as like, do we like how Hollywood portrays firearms in movies as like either scary or like, you know, suppressors working to completely mute gunshots, or do we like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, when you get into that kind of stuff, I'm down. But I guess if you were going to go further into the like, you know, should it be legal to toss back a few and go shooting? It's not smart, but drunks can do stuff with 8 beers that I can't do with 1 beer. So I'm not going to tell somebody who's used to having 4 beers to be normal what they can do with 6 beers in them. But on the other hand, I'm not going around. It's tough to say I'm down for being that free because I'm okay with that, because that is the way it is right now. There are people that run around. I walk the dog, right? And I see way too many of these little cinnamon booze bottles everywhere. There's drunk drivers, like they exist, and we don't have drunk driving accidents constantly. So there's capable drunk drivers, and I'm not saying it's cool. I'm just saying like that's the reality. So if that is the reality, even if we'd like to have a world without them, the world with them is not ultra dangerous. So I'm not saying there shouldn't be laws on that. I'm just trying to say that, you know, if that's the case, there are people running around drinking and stuff. Like, I don't think there needs to be additional laws against it for damn sure. And I'm not going to say there should be like the booze and gun club. But if they want to make a booze and gun club, the ATF insists on putting booze and guns together. So, you know, we're just doing what they told us.
right. Ultimate convenience.
I just wanted to say, like, I would actually be on the side of like, yeah, total freedom. And then obviously consequences and responsibility. But the thing is, everybody already has responsibility and consequences. So I'll be down for the freedom because I am confident that the history has shown us that we are capable. There's always going to be an outlier, and there's going to be the thing that makes us look bad for being willing to do that. But for the most part, people understand the consequences and the responsibility of having a dangerous thing, whether it be a sharp thing or a heavy thing or a shooty thing or a poison thing or a, you know, whatever it is. We're used to doing that. But anyway.
Yeah. No, there's a range in Tampa that I, when I was doing research for the video, I don't know if they're still around, but there was a range, I think it was Tampa, Florida, and they have a bar attached to the range. And the rule is, I think after you drink, or if you have been drinking, you don't get to go back out onto the range. But what you can do is you can go use the range. And then if you want to go to the bar grill that's attached, you can do that after the fact. And then go get your whistle wet. And that's cool. Like, almost I don't have
every state has those. Those are gun tree clubs is beginning to do that, but others other things, especially like what these guys were saying with the shotgun stuff. But yeah, there's a lot of places that have a full out bar, just like a golf course. Some place will have like a place to buy a beer, and other places will have a full out bar that's all fancy. Like, it happens with gun shops, and definitely the high end ones. And there's cigar shops in there usually too.
Yeah, and I'm all for, like, basically, like, we don't need rules from the government to be responsible. Like, that range on their own said, no, if you drink, you're not coming back out on our range. You know, if I'm shooting with people at a range and I see them drinking, I'm leaving that range. You know, because I'm personally, I don't feel comfortable with it, but that doesn't mean that I get to regulate everybody else. It just means I go, hey, this is my personal level, and you can go do you. Don't hurt anyone else, and it's not a problem, you know? So for me, like, yeah, I'm not about regulating it. I'm all about, like, private people, you know, choosing what they want the rules to be in their own home on their own property. That's fine. But yeah, there's no reason, like, in the drunk driving stuff, I think that drunk driving is can be widely overblown. There's a lot of evidence, I think, to that point, to what you pointed out.
Oh, I'm not advocating. I'm just saying,
I'm not advocating drunk driving, but
it just happens.
Yeah, it happens all the time. It happens constantly. Like, if you talk to people, we have like radio jocks out here in the Sacramento area that talk about how they would drunk drive all the freaking time when they were like back in the 80s and stuff, and no one thought anything of it then. Like, it was just what people did, and they feel comfortable doing it still now. Even like they're just like, you're not a bad person.
Do that. Yeah, there's people that don't care, because if you live with 3 beers in you all the time, what are you going to not drive? Of course you're going to keep driving. Like, there's just some people do that.
Yeah, and I don't advocate it. I think it's dumb, but because I think it's dumb, I don't do it. So that's my answer. Like, I don't need to police everybody else's behavior.
Well, I'm not trying to say it should be legal either. I'm just saying that because it happens and we don't live in carnage, then obviously it must exist. Like, people can't exist doing it. That's all I'm saying. But anyway, it's tough to say that because it sounds like you're advocating recklessness or bad decisions, and I'm not trying to do that as much either. So let's go back to your suggestion that, where'd it go? That gun culture comes from 1970. So is that something that you discovered, or something that you've assumed over something, or where'd you come up with this idea?
Yeah. So, basically, like, the idea was when I was doing research that someone had actually coined that term, I guess. So yeah, and I didn't dig in on this too much, but there's like a nature.com article where it says that the term gun culture was coined in 1970 by Hofstadter, who viewed it as a monolithic and described it as Americans' unique belief in the notion that the people's right to bear arms is the greatest protection of their individual rights and a firm safeguard of democracy.
Yeah, that's not it explicitly, though.
So, yeah, I mean, I wasn't around then, so I don't know.
Yeah, Hofstadter didn't want that to be exclusively American. Basically, what it is there's a gun culture everywhere where there's a culture with guns. So, but each one's, mores are indigenous to them. So the gun culture of northern Afghanistan, that's a completely different kind of gig than southern United States, but they both have gun cultures. So it's not just us.
Yeah, that's fair too, right? And so when I was trying to answer the question, that was why I broadened it out. So it was like, it's interesting because if you think about everywhere where guns are talked about or where arms are talked about in media, right? Arms are so ingrained, right? Can't turn on a show without a fight scene, anymore, or without people discussing what someone did with weapons, right? Even if we leave the guns out of it, like it's the TV that we like to watch. It's what we like to consume. Our music talks about it. It's our hobbies and everything. So it's kind of fascinating to take like a more holistic look and then be like, well, what would I want to change? Well, I'd want to change how people feel about it. I hate that people are afraid of this stuff because they really shouldn't be. It's a tool like any other tool. It's an object. It's something that's important, but like when I was thinking about this, I'm like, would I ever be making a video about sledgehammer culture? Would I ever make a video about Allen wrench culture? You know what I mean? Like, it's odd that we even have to do this. And the reason that we have to is because people have gone after them. So I guess like.
Oh, no. But I understand what you're saying. I don't agree with you at all, but I hear what you're saying. Is that really what you think, that's why we're a culture, is because we've been persecuted?
Oh, no, I'm not arguing that. I'm arguing it's odd that we defend it, that we have to defend it with this level of vitriol when it's something that's just normal.
I think the defense comes because people are attacking us, and that attack is relatively recent, and it's not the only time we've been attacked, but it's a recent thing from a political thing or whatever. Mm-hmm. But as far as our whatever, what did this guy say? Our affection for firearms. There's more to it than that. Firearms are technology. Firearms are society. Firearms are food, and that kind of thing. Like and then they're the weapons thing. There's their individual versus come call the police or just be a victim of bullies. Like there's so many layers of guns that the United States couldn't exist without guns. And it's not the only thing, because cars didn't exist when we started the country, but obviously cars are massive to our country now. Internet didn't exist, but semiconductors and copper, what we magically can do with copper is a big part of the United States now. So, we are an industrial, we are an innovative, we are I don't know if way to describe it right, but we're from the individual up, as opposed to from the greater good or from the tradition down or from the whatever. We're from the individual up, working together, right? Individual freedom and then liberty working together. Because of that, the guns have facilitated it, been a symbol of, and then allowed it to happen. So, all at the same time, simultaneously, and then interchangeable parts is guns. That's the Industrial Revolution, stopping horrible, things that created world wars, like the instigations of world wars that would have gone unchecked, like, guns stop that and facilitate that, and then come home and allow people to then, solve social issues. So the gun culture, I think I heard a guy, and I can't remember now where the heck I heard it, and I think I played it like on a 4th of July or during this show on a 4th of July, or like something of that significance. And I was just trying to play some stuff, because sometimes on those shows, on those holidays, on years when the show is, there's it's the time to do it. We'll just play some stuff and not really have a chat, just play some stuff and then turn the show off. And it was one of those. And I found a speech, and this guy, and I can't remember if it was like Reagan in a, becoming a president type of speech, or if it was something else, but let's say it was Reagan, because it was something like a Reagan speech. And but it could have easily been a freaking musician too, now that I'm thinking about it. But it was somebody doing some kind of a speech on like a 4th of July type of thing. And they were saying how the gun was so crucial for not just the settlers and whatnot, but also then as this symbol for other countries. So the respect that we have and the position we have amongst other countries and their abilities to progress or to evolve has all been rooted on this one thing. So it's just, and you could probably swap it now with like the semiconductor, because that's almost as influential, right? With its capabilities are and its multifacetedness or whatever. But at the time, and like, still, till today. So anyway, I would just say gun culture, 1970, that might be when that guy decided some element of it came to light. But no, I mean, it's definitely like, just every part of us is because we got a gun in our hand. Like we're individuals with guns, and that's just the symbol of like the state doesn't tell us what to do, and each other doesn't bully, we don't bully each other.
Yeah, but I think the term just got like coined then, or I guess popularized then, was all nature was trying to say. I don't know if the term was used before that. I know
what was also happening in the 70s. It was like a time of like, let's rebel from the big state, because the big state is establishment, right? Establishmentarianism, and it's you have to conform, right? And in the 70s, it was a lot of like, let's learn wicker, or let's learn how to like macrame our clothing and wicker all of our furniture, and like, value self, so there was like a lot of like getting into stuff. So getting into hunting again, getting into off-road, like or getting into survivalist became a thing. So I could see that in the 70s, it was all about like, let's give everybody like a name. Like, what are you into? Like if you're a radio guy and you're the gun culture. So I could see it just being a time of like labeling everything and giving everybody their space to do their whatever interests, I guess.
Quite possibly. I mean, yeah, like it's interesting to see those kinds of things. Oh God, that comment, Net Flutter, I feel you, dude. That's what drove me. Frankly. Being out here in California, that's what it is.
Specific thing, or just like the moment? It had to be anti-gunners pinning you against like wanting to own a gun, or anti-gunners preventing you from self-defense. Like anti-gunners were the thing that wouldn't let you do whatever it is that you want, right? It wasn't the anti-gunners were just such a horrible thing you decided to get into guns.
Well, I got into guns because I liked them before, and because like, having the military background and everything, I was already kind of familiar enough to start figuring it out. And that's what got me into it. And like, even like, I think if you had to go back like 5-6 years for me, positions wise, I would have been like, there's compromise to be had. Like we can give them some things. And I probably would have been taking those positions. When the featureless laws happened, that started to change. And then I think I kind of started to finish a lot of my work. Gosh, I would probably say around like, as far as like on my position, around 2018, 2019. That was probably when I started to go and say like, hey, look, at this point, there's no reasonable infringements anymore. There's no such thing. This is ridiculous. This is incompatible. If I give them an inch, they take a mile. We have to stop this. We have to look at like different things. And then I didn't really think about how I wanted to get into the discussion until basically last year. So like that was when I was like, yeah, I'm going to start making the content and everything, because now I know what my angle is. But before, I wanted to actually do a channel called 2A Debate, where I'd just be talking both sides of the debate, and it wasn't going to be a pro-gun channel or a pro-Second Amendment channel. It was just going to be a channel that discusses the Second Amendment constantly in a lot more of a neutral way than what I've done, with like that kind of like false CNN neutrality. But like the more I learned and the more that I observed, the more I started to see that I didn't need to be neutral on this issue. That
it's really, am I wrong, or is it really hard? I mean, it's obviously skewed, but it's really hard because their arguments are all bullshit, fake, like regurgitations or just made up bullshit, or like fake statistics and like weird interpretations of statistics, I guess. You know, it's not like there's this equal balance and let's offer a real insight to both sides, or let's see what each side might be hiding, because it's such a fine line. It's like they hate, and like all those things that you've brought up, like there's so many other ways that they could actually address the issues they claim to hide behind, but instead they just hate, and they use this as another bludgeon device, and they require ignorance, and they refuse to move an inch or show any sort of like awareness of the actual situation. They just stand behind their platitudes and their war cries, and then demand what they call compromise, which is really us changing our, removing, basically being infringed or removing rights.
Yeah, like that's kind of what I saw. Like, it's as soon as you have the philosophical basis down enough, and you don't have to be a philosopher for that. It's just like you can arrive at that position pretty intuitively, which is why I think it's really popular or at least it's easier to talk about on the right in a sense. I think that's part of it, as opposed to like the left. They have some difficulty sometimes articulating that well, because I think they tend to be more towards like flushing out intellectualism. Not to say the right is not stupid or anything like that, just to say like the left is going to be off in theory land, and they have a tendency to maybe overthink some basic issues, if anything, and the right has a tendency to maybe simplify them, if anything. And so those are two different things that like I think the right, and being on the right, that also was kind of helpful for me to be like, oh damn, this is just a rights issue. This isn't a right versus left thing. This is literally a civil liberties thing. And intuitively, it makes sense that if I want to be able to defend myself, if I want to be able to own property, if I want the government out of my life, then I need to be able to just own what I want to own. Like, and any argument to the contrary on that is people who just don't want me to practice that right. For the most part, like it's going to be people that just don't want me to practice that right because it scares them, or because it's not what they would do, or whatever. And that's all.
Or they haven't looked into it. And I think you can say that because they insist on requiring infringements, or what I should say in a fancy way, they insist on requiring new additional laws which wouldn't address the issues that they claim to be trying to address. Instead, they would just infringe on your ability to possess or own or use what you got. And they basically be ignoring all the things that you would also bring up, like the non-mandatory opportunity or barrier, removing the barriers to opportunity and offering options, removing mental stigmas and those kind of things that would actually affect the death rates. And instead, they insist on mandatory dictates that wouldn't, even if they were complied with, even if they're completely given into, right? And the other, the gun side just says, you're right, this is all going to work. We're just going to give up our guns. None of it would stop the actual issue of suicide. So those people who were committing suicide with guns would now have the same issues and would still have stigmas, and they'd still commit suicide with different objects. And what we'd have is people not recreationally, peacefully making noise someplace, and the same amount of deaths and stuff. And then they wouldn't be satisfied because their history has been that every time they get a win, they just dig in harder. So then they'd go after shotguns, claiming something else, ducks or lead in the water or something.
Yeah. And I don't have an issue with like some of the ideas that if they wanted to quote unquote compromise on, that we could actually do. So like, let me give you an example before people freak out over me saying I would be willing to work with them on this. If they wanted to have a program at a city level, and the people in that city voted for it, that the city wants to provide crisis counseling to people in need, and and is going to, as part of that service, provide gun locks on a voluntary basis where they're not telling you how to lock it up. They're just saying, hey, we understand that you're going through a hard time right now. Would you like to secure that firearm? That action by itself requires nothing of the individual, requires nothing other than like your tax dollars. If a locality wants to do a program like that, where they're not regulating, this is how you store it, this is how everything has to be, you have to do it our way or you're going to get arrested, or we're going to red flag you or whatever. I'm personally, like, that's not gun control to me. I don't see that as gun control. I see that as intelligent legislation to prevent gun violence. If you're going to mandate like what they did in Palo Alto, or what they're trying to do in Palo Alto, what they did in Dublin, what they've done in Redwood City, all these other cities where there's like safe storage laws. So now if the police are ever at your house and they happen to find a safe that's non-compliant and there's a firearm inside, you're screwed. That's not okay, right? So like there's common sense stuff that we can do that can even touch guns that doesn't infringe on the right at all, because it's just an additional helper. It's an additional support. It's not telling you to do anything. It's not controlling what you own. It's not controlling any of that. It's not controlling who can buy them. It's literally just like, hey, would you like some help? And like that type of stuff, I think Americans generally are pretty open to, like voluntarily getting help.
So here's the thing. That's a specific, and you've had other specifics, and people are going to agree or not. But here's the thing. Most people aren't going to listen to anywhere near that. They're going to listen to the introduction to this topic, and then you're going to hear some of those words. They're going to hear enough of the words that trigger, oh, this is not my cup of tea. And then they're not going to listen to what you're actually saying there. Hold on. I just had to cough. So, but that's a specific. Here's the thing. The idea of I'm going to say it like this, and this probably ain't the best way to say it, but I'm trying to get it across at 3 a.m. or whatever. But the idea, so the specific that you're talking about there, and the concept of offering locks, for example, but that idea of dealing with stuff in a liberal way, you said it was, I'm willing to work with a liberal. Those specific set of words might turn people off, or they might not appeal to people who are interested in talking to people, listening to your conversation. But that doesn't matter, because the concept is that you're addressing the gun control debate in a different way, I guess, in a different setting, I guess. I don't know how to say it, but like you're using not just different words, but completely different arguments. And my biggest complaint is that over my experience, we have a position. The antis have their positions. They almost never change them. Therefore, we've never changed them. And therefore, every time we get into a situation, usually from their instigation, we are yelling the same things louder or more often or on different platforms or with different voices. But we haven't really evolved the positions that we've got. And it's not that you're saying our positions are wrong or they're anything about that. You're just saying there's other ways to attack this besides just having a position and saying it louder and more often and all these different things. So that's the part that I have tried to conceptualize and then explain to others, that what you're bringing to the table with your last couple of videos is more than just 3 or 4 new ideas. You're talking about those specific ideas are ways of dealing with the debate in ways that the left has never had presented to them, that the debate has never had as options, and that the right won't shut up enough about complaining or moping or coming up with a great idea for the next, that they just won't listen to what you're actually trying to do, which is basically flank. That's the easiest way to say it. We like go head to head, and you're flanking them, and you're taking them out with a different, like you're flanking them with a belt-fed tripod-mounted thing, and our tactics have all been rifles with magazines in our mag pouches, and groups of guys in battalions of guys and small units. But you're talking about bringing a whole other group of stuff to the battlefield, which is valid and super necessary. And that's the part where I'm trying to say, like, how do I get you to focus on that part in front of people like Yankee or somebody who needs to realize that he needs to know there's other ways to attack. And he's maybe a good one to come up with, but I think there's other people out there, that I'm just using Yankee because I have a limited experience, but there's probably some people you could bring that concept to, or you're what I'm assuming is your concept, because I haven't seen anybody else out there bring those kind of subjects up. Everybody else is just repeating what they've already come up with over and over and over. But how to get that to other people, and I don't know, just so you know, that's the part I see as the most valuable of what you've been bringing to the table. And don't get discouraged, because what you're bringing to the table is new, and I suspect it's the next. It's what's going to be effective and work. And as soon as you can plug in your concepts to some of the people that have already been doing stuff for the last 5 years, once they add your concepts to their toolboxes, I mean, it could be over. Like, it could literally be over. We could take away the concept that guns are a political issue. We could take away the concept that gun owners are big fat white guys you should be scared of. I mean, we could do a lot of that. I don't even think I'm crazy. I think that's accomplishable, or like possible.
Yeah, like, and the cool thing I think that I've seen, and I'm not trying to like toot my own horn or anything, the thing that encourages me, because it is funny that you say that, because it's actually the most opposition that I get isn't from the left at all, because they're actually really open to hearing it. It's like the left and liberals generally are pretty open to my position.
That's good to hear, because it seems like it's so fresh and new. I would think they'd appreciate it.
Oh yeah, no, like they see it and they're like, oh, this makes sense, or like, I'm not totally for it, but I'm really down to listen to this. Like, my audience, I have legitimate Marxists in my audience, like actual guys who are like, no, I'm not some socialist or whatever. I'm not some dim sock. I'm not a Democrat. I'm a Marxist. Like, like, I have those types of guys in my audience. I've got Trump supporters in my audience, even though like I'll take dookies on Trump all the time. Like, I've got a really like strange group of people that listen to me. Like that, just, and not even strange, just diverse. Like, right. It's kind of funny how I get away with that. And that's cool. Like, that's what I want, that means that it's working. And the other thing that I look at,
you're describing the accumulation of the group as strange, not any individuals as strange.
Right. Yeah. So like all kinds of different ideologies, all kinds of different backgrounds. The thing that, and it's the right that typically has problems with what I have to say anyway, because I'll be encouraging the government to do something. And I understand why they have that apprehension. I respect that. I also have to be able to work across the aisle. So, so that I'll give them the things that I don't mind giving them. If they want, a couple pennies in taxes here and there, I'm not going to complain about that too much. If our civil liberties, like, our first 5 and the Bill of Rights are the most important to me. If those are getting protected, I'm a little less worried about what my tax rate is personally. And I know not everyone shares that, and that's cool. But the thing that encourages me the most is like when we go on to those Reddits, we go on to these Discord discussions, we go into everything, and to see how the rhetoric is shifting to support this. That's been the really cool thing. So like watching messages take their effect and seeing the conversation shift and seeing behavioral shifts is always really cool. And that's how I judge my relevance is what I'm introducing into the conversation changing how it's happening. That's always the metric that I use to judge myself, and that's how I determine what content pieces I'm going to be putting out. So
one thing is obviously the message, or the words, I guess, can make a difference. So when you're saying stuff, first off, I don't know where you're coming from or what you're thinking about when you say stuff or whatever. Nobody would, right? But, or at least I haven't listened to enough stuff to know where you're thinking about on everything. But when I hear a conversation like you posit, I don't know what the word is, but what you throw out there, like the idea that, like, okay, so you're talking to an anti, and you claim that you want to have less violence or you want to have less deaths from with firearm being involved. And we can agree that we're never going to agree on whether or not suicide is a violent death or not, but let's agree that we want less suicide. So here's some 3 things that I won't bother to repeat them, but here's 3 things that we can do to avoid suicides. That would get the rates down. That would not bother me. We would both support that. We could both effort for that. And that would be a compromise that accomplishes something. Let's get to work. And that anti is going to go, let me go ask my overlords, and their overlords are going to say, no, that's not what we want. We want them to have no guns. So that will not be a compromise. It won't work. And you know what I'm saying? Like, I think that or whatever, where was I going with that? That concept or whatever is something that people need to understand that, I guess that that conversation there doesn't lead to the government needs to offer the locks, or that the locks, like I say, that argument is kind of wrong. So I don't care if we agree on that or not, because the concept is, let's change the argument. Let's flank the antis when they come at us with this freaking ambush every single time. They come at us with the same group of stuff. It's just obvious to flank them, to not hit them head on every time. So here's the thing. You don't need to justify or what's the word? Like, what's the word? Like, you don't have to support your positions. Your positions are to flank. They can say, I don't like what you brought with you to flank. I don't like the where you went to flank. I don't like how you flank. I don't like when you flank. The concept is flanking. So that's all I was going to get at, is that, yeah, I don't agree with the whole thing about the gun locks if you took it down that specific road, only because it seems like you kind of went to the conversation with these other people to where the government's paying for it and you're ready to pay some taxes. Well, don't get into that, is all I'm saying. When you're talking to a gun person, my mind didn't go to the government. My mind went to something like Walk the Talk America, where they insert a handout with every gun voluntarily, and that's an industry-based solution. Right. So gun locks, number one, you just don't know, but every gun shop will just hand you as many gun locks as you want. So if we said to the gun shops as the gun community, hey, let's make a big deal about how we'll give you gun locks. It's a voluntary thing, and that'll appease people who think that laws need to exist. We could literally, what an awesome challenge that would be, to have everybody go to the gun shops, and these locks that literally plague us because other stupid laws required these locks to exist, and so many people exploited or capitalized on those fucking locks that they're everywhere, that we could literally be showering people with gun locks. Like, that's the easiest, least offensive thing. So anyway, all I'm getting at is, it doesn't need to be a government thing. It could
absolutely doesn't have to be.
So just don't go all the way down these roads when you're talking to gun guys. Leave it at the flank part. Like, hey, you might not like my idea about how and what and when to flank, but let's start flanking instead of just hitting people head to head, because that's really what we're trying to get. I would think that's what I'm trying to get across to people, is that what you bring to the table isn't that your ideas are specifically your specific ideas are brilliant and we have to do whatever Walt says, but instead look at the way Walt fights. He's bringing jujitsu, or more like Jeet Kune Do, to the table, where we're running up and doing Taekwondo every time, and all they got to do is sweep our legs, and we're getting humiliated by the other side because we come up and do the same 4 techniques every time, and we're a mechanism.
I will say, do you want to know what the antis have said in debate so far with me? I've had like these debates in Discord and such. It's been fascinating. So one guy.
Well, let me ask one thing first. When we say anti, somebody who just doesn't like guns, or somebody
someone who wants to abolish the Second Amendment.
Okay.
Yeah. So I had this conversation with this guy, and I said, hey, like, this is my plan, right? Like, you're obviously, left leaning and stuff. You obviously support these social reforms. I've seen some of your other posts. My idea is that I don't need to restrict individual liberty. My idea is that the average American is responsible given the numbers. My idea is that we don't need to be told what to do by our government, and that our government shouldn't. And this particular individual is a Marine, and I'm like, hey, look, you're a Marine, I'm a soldier. I swore an oath to a Constitution. You did the same. You and I both understand a deep respect of firearm safety and handling and everything, and we both encourage that, and we want to have a positive gun culture. But we also want to address other social problems. So what about these different reforms? What about these different ideas? What do you have to say to that? And then funny enough, he said no, because those reforms will never go through. I'm like, wait, so your position is really that you don't want to make society better? Instead, you just want to ban stuff? And yes.
Like, reforms on what?
There's all these different like welfare reforms. There's all these different programs we can do. There's different things that we can do to like impact education, food stamps, healthcare.
So you're talking about like actual things that might impact society to stop people from killing each other, sitting around figuring out ways to want to kill each other.
Yep. So
and you're saying because he saw that as like such a monumental task that he couldn't see the obvious path to victory, he decided that the tactic would be to not attempt that battle.
Yeah, and so it was
And
really
that happens a lot when you're not small unit tactics, when you are platoon strength, when you're battalion strength, and you understand what it's like to be a part of a larger piece. That's the kind of decisions you make. That's why generals make decisions and not units, right?
and that's when I won the crowd, basically, because at that point I just went, hey, look, like my goal is to make society better so that people are more free to act and more free to do things. And then suddenly everybody had questions for me and nobody had any questions for him anymore, because he openly said, I don't want to make society better, I want to take away things from you. So it put him in a spot where
I'm and then it's not like you're suggesting like that guy can't ever come back to the table. Like, you've made your point and you've got to go lie with that position and die with it. Instead, hopefully that guy realized what he just said to him. Like, he said, like, oh, wait a minute. And right. Like, hopefully this guy will ponder on that and go, wait a minute, this position does lead to basically, if you don't agree with me, you can't be free.
Yeah. And like in his position, like, will it change his mind? Maybe, maybe not. Like, if he's so hard indoctrinated that he's not willing to say, hey, I would trade with you on this one issue to fix everything else with society that's wrong. Like, if that's the point, then it's like, no, like, listen, like, then you don't care about making society better, and you've just given away the game. You care about restricting something that makes you feel uncomfortable over improving society. That's not, that's not promoting freedom. That's not promoting American values. That's promoting authoritarianism. That's not promoting the welfare of the people. That's putting your personal feelings above everybody else's. That's not American at all.
It's faith in the state to take care of things, and zero faith in fellow citizens, or whatever you want to call everybody else. And it's unawareness of what we have, the world we exist in. Because people that are afraid of guns are afraid of a perception that's given to them, because it's not the actual case. There isn't a gun crisis or scourge or whatever. There's very few instances compared to a world that's super violent. The guns create a fairly calm, peaceful place here. So it just seems like an ultimate faith in this like state, this utopia that the state can provide, and in a complete intentional, almost like a lack of awareness that if we wanted to be violent, like people that go, oh, you can't have stuff because I'm afraid of what people will do with it. What do you think people are doing right now? If people are that violent and horrible, why aren't they stabbing each other with knives every time they get in a fight? Why aren't we smashing bottles? Why aren't we pushing each other into traffic? Like, this stuff doesn't happen. And why would some implement change any of that? Like that, is 20, right? 25 maybe?
I'm 8 years old.
I don't know. I think you said you have a kid or you're married, but I don't know what they do in California.
I'm married. I've got 2 kids. No, I'm 29.
Okay, so I won't remember that, and I'll probably still say you're 20. But one day, I don't know if I know anybody's age. I don't. It's one of those things I don't keep track of. So
a year younger every time. So if you want to just throw out, oh, he's 12, oh, he's 15, oh, he's 11, whatever, that's all good.
Yeah, like so you're just way younger than us. So.
I'm a kid relative to you guys. So.
But like I said, it's just I don't keep track. I don't know how old I am. I don't keep track of ages on things. I've never needed it, so I've left that to other people. So it's just anyway. So it's just one of those things I won't remember. So yeah, we got a couple of people. Bob got worn out, went back to bed. I don't know where you're at, having energy or not. We were about going on the 3-hour mark. But yeah, the conversation's been good. Let me go back to, I don't know if you've been listening to the whole show or not.
I was actually in a very heated debate on criminal justice reform at the time, so I wasn't able to catch until right about when I commented.
Right on. Well, I'm glad to know that there's stuff happening, because I've been playing now that I've been learning. Well, you've been around for a couple of the debates, or not debates, but the conversations where I've been working on the signal intelligence project, to learn, what all this stuff is and hopefully explain it to people. So yeah, as I've been getting into it, I got into security and privacy and just it's I don't know what to call them, tentacles or roots or something, but it definitely, you got to stop yourself when you start going in each of these directions, because they're all kind of interesting. Anyway, there's a lot to all that. And because of that, I've been in just, I don't know, the last year or so, I've been screwing with the YouTube logarithm, but now I'm going to definitely be screwing with the logarithm even more. So because of all that, I don't have any idea what's happening in the world anymore. I been on YouTube, I guess, since like 2009, and I've evolved with it, right? So I've always used it as my way to keep track of what's going on in the gun community with our friends and whatnot, and then in general, right? But now I depend 100% on talking to people, because what I've done to my YouTube and messing with the logarithm has just given me just the most random, weird stuff that has nothing to do with news of the day. So to hear that you're in debates like that is good, because I'm glad to hear that there's people having valid conversations that are hopefully effective and, you know, moving everything forward. Because if it was up to me, it would be all like just basically all DIY, people wasting their time fiddling. You know, that's been all that YouTube provides me with anymore, is just either canon, because I've been watching the canon TV show, or just like it's desperately just trying to throw me stuff that it thinks anyone would like.
Oh yeah, I feel that.
Anyway, so that's a long way of saying, yeah, so there's a couple other things that we talked about tonight. Was the ham radio, the FCC. I don't know if you were into ham or not, but the FCC put out a thing to ham operators not to commit crimes with hams, that because of Trump, a bunch of rumors been going around that ham is some sort of new alternative social media platform, and that all the laws are going to apply. And then the AA, what is it called? The ARRL, the big club that everybody has to kind of join, also came out with their like weird, like Sunday morning warning about not using ham radio illegally. Patriot, our friend out there, is doing a project trying to get people to post videos about heroes, and then he's collecting them, and he's offering like a project and some prizes and stuff to encourage people to be part of that project. That guy FUDDBUSTERS, we've talked about him. I think I guess he works for FPC, and I thought he was in California, but I'm not sure anymore. He did a video today that I didn't watch. Do you ever watch a thing called Primary Secondary?
I feel like I've heard of that channel, but I also feel like I'm confusing them with like the primary arms vendor.
Okay, yeah, it's basically a bunch of cops and military, I think mostly cops, and primary secondary, I think, is like primary secondary firearm is where that comes from, I think.
Or it could be planning too, because it could be like primary, secondary, like tertiary and emergency or contingency emergency or whatever, like base planning.
Totally could be on a totally different.
I have no idea.
But it's basically
that's primary alternate. So no, it's probably primary secondary firearm. You're probably right.
But I really don't know, because it is something that I'm not part of, and it was, from what I understand, though, it's a forum that forums they're not video based, and almost always, and we never really talk about this, but forums hated YouTube. Forums kind of hate video. So the reasons forums still exist is because there's people out there that really hate video, like a lot. They like to read, I guess, or for whatever, like maybe they live lives where they can't have video playing, so they just don't like video, or some people just hate video. So forums exist because there's a lot of people that like to blab but don't want to do it in a video format. So anyway, the primary secondary is a forum, and some of the mods on that forum, and if you're not familiar with forums, they're not like YouTube, they're different. And you can't just run a forum. You need a lot of help. So there's moderators, like we have moderators, I guess, in YouTube. So I guess there's a little different similarities. But moderators are much more respected in forums usually, or at least have more power, so they have to be respected. And from what I understand, primary, secondary is the moderators from a, let's say, popular forum. I really don't know, but let's just say popular forum, and the moderators would get together and have a live conversation. So you can imagine the moderators of a popular forum getting together to talk about whatever moderators might talk about. So all the topics that happened on the forum, plus, kind of behind the scenes. It must be really interesting for that forum, if you're interested in the video part of it or whatever, you can tolerate the video, to have that like whatever insight or whatever. And it's been popular because it's been around for a while now, years. And I don't watch it enough to know any more of like the nuts and bolts of the ins and outs of it, other than I know it comes from cops, and every once in a while I'll look at it, because if the topic is interesting, they know what they're talking about. I don't listen to everything about training, because I've been to enough training to understand that you'll never know everything. And then I've been to lots of training, in the quest to learn a lot that I really got into learning about the different instructors. And once I went to training to experience different instructors, the way they instruct and what they instruct, and then the classes, and then the differences between them, I started getting into that level. I no longer have any interest to listen to other people talk about it, because I, either have been there or I understand that it's an endless pit that I just can't, I've already devoted a lot of time to. So anyway, I don't watch it constantly, but I understand when it's something valid, it's going to be good stuff. So they've had some interesting discussions lately. And this one was a 5-minute one. So I watched a piece of it, and it wasn't that good, actually. It was a guy talking about basically, should you wear all your kit, like all your plates and stuff when you train, or not? And I think I didn't watch the whole thing. I skipped through it. It sounded like his answer was don't bother. And I don't like any answer, because I'll never take any answer, because you definitely want to wear your kit sometimes, and you definitely don't need to wear your kit all the time. But I'm not going to take an answer from anybody, because anybody can always add to the whole thing. But you know what I'm saying? Like, there is no answer. Yeah. So
it's an endless pit. No, for sure. Like that's kind of my thing. It's like, I don't intend to take any rifle classes for a very long time after 8 years of Army. I'll take pistol classes because I still have a lot to learn about pistols, where I'm still like, that's my weakest area in shooting. That's where I like to do my practice, because it is my weakest area and I want to get better at it. I'm probably better with like handling a pistol than I am, say, like a shotgun or something like that, because that's so foreign to me. But when I shoot shotgun, I'm shooting like trap, like that's the extent of what I do. Is like, I might occasionally get with someone and go, shoot some clays or something like that, but I'm not doing anything crazy with the shotgun. But yeah, I'm very much the same way. There's always a caveat and a yabba and always a new technique and whatever. And I think the reality of it is, like, once you kind of understand macro how things work, as long as you practice, you're going to be okay. I'm also not in the go crazy on the body armor camp. I don't mind if people have it, like, it's their choice to buy whatever they want to buy, but I'm not sweating like a lot of the decisions that I think the community gets really tied up in focusing on.
Right on. Yeah, and everybody can have their decisions. I think it's like an AR-15. You can not own an AR, and you cannot own armor, but a citizen owns AR and it owns armor. That's how I think of it. You don't have to, but you might as well.
Yeah. Personal choice. Yeah.
But anyway, so that's, there's so much with training and stuff. It's sort of like writing. Like, at what point do you stop learning how to write? At what point do you stop reading books and just write? And then, there's no answer to that. Like, because some people are going to constantly write and get better, and just no answer to any of this stuff. So anyway, so it is interesting to watch a video like that once in a while for me. But anyway, I just threw it in there, mainly to have this, to let people know that it's out there, that there's resources like that. And then you said something about not being interested in rifle training. I'm more used to having people just hate training, because for whatever reason, most of the people I hang out with online are not into training. They see no reason for it, which is fine. I don't care. But the people I hang out in real life understand training, and I've had a chance to experience some awesome stuff. I like Army surplus. I like military surplus. I like police surplus. Training is military surplus. We pay a lot of people to learn how to do all kinds of interesting things. They teach our employees how to do it. And when those employees retire or get out, they teach that same information to us. So that's military surplus info. Like, you can get it. It's like the same thing. You can go read a manual, right? You can read a manual, or you can hang out with somebody who did stuff that manual was written for, right? And they're going to be different levels of insight and awareness. So anyway, if you're not into rifle training, I can hear that. There's so much more to it, though. And it's not just the instruction or the abilities or the skill sets, but in California specifically, you go to a class with other students. That the potentiality of that is great. So I could see potentially trying to change your mind if it ever got to be a thing where you were thinking about it or debating it.
Yeah, there's like some courses I've seen that I would be maybe interested in, and it's just like it's mostly more. It's I guess you could describe it in a sense. Those courses are mostly an opportunity cost because it's like, oh man, I could buy another gun, or I could buy so much ammo, or I could go and do this like for
and then stick that in 2018 versus 2021, and it's a different
right.
situation.
So like, yeah, there's the aspect of it where it's like, hey, look, like my rifle skills compared to all of my skills, the rifle skills are the ones that need the least work for me right now.
And then without going too far into it, remember that Navy will have you always point your gun up, where Air Force is, or anybody who jumps out of a helicopter is always going to have you point your gun down. And just thinking about that means that there is no knowledge of gunfighting. All there is knowledge of a kind of gunfighting. Rifle is like anything else. You can learn handgun fighting from somebody who's like no sights and speed shooting, and you can learn handgun shooting from like a competition shooter, and then you can learn it from a cop, and then you can learn it from somebody who is doing door-to-door entries, right? All different and all valuable to the thing. So that's why I'm saying, like, don't just think like, oh, there's rifle training, because but there's some neat stuff you can get into with rifle stuff, and not even getting into distances and stuff. But again, people who are in boats are never going to point their guns down. People in helicopters are never going to point their guns up. That alone is like, there's differences in training that are just fundamental.
Yeah. And that's stuff that like I've observed throughout like military career too, like depending on like even like, the range rules for the Army, or depending on the unit that we'd be attached to or whatever, like, you'd have vastly different ways of dealing with the same kind of problem.
Oh, dude, have you ever been on a hot range besides a cold range?
Like
in real units, like in real life, there's no such thing as empty fucking guns. Like, if you can't deal with your guns hot all the time, then you're not in those units. Like, there's places where you just have your guns hot all the time and you just deal with that. And then there's cold ranges where that's like most of us experience, where you empty guns at the range and stuff. That's just two different worlds. And training where you're in a hot range is a different world than training in cold range. And it's,
yeah, and I've only got like a little bit of I guess you could say hot range time. I've done like the reactionary fire courses, I've done the stress shooting, I've done like the shooting from like weird and compromised positions, I've done the shooting around like barriers and all this stuff. Like, I mean, there's always a basic skill that you can always flesh out more. And I'm not opposed to training. Like, I guess the best way to state it is just like going back to like that opportunity cost, because rifles do have a lot of capabilities. I know that like with pistol though, right now, like my pistol shooting, because I'm cold, because I see shooting as a perishable skill. My pistol shooting right now is like, yeah, I'll consistently hit the silhouette, but I'm not driving like a really tight group, right? Like I'll keep them in the box. I'll keep them in like maybe the 8 ring is 7 yards, or I'll keep them in like, an 8 ring at maybe out to 15 yards, but then I'll start to really deviate if I get any further than that. And so for me, I'm like, okay, well, what am I going to work on? If I'm a weak pistol shooter, I'm going to work on my pistol shooting. If I have an AR and I'm shooting, 100 meter, 200 meter target, whatever, nothing, right? 300 meters. Yeah. 4 out of 5 times. Does that mean I'm perfect? No, there's always more training to be done. And I still go out and shoot my ARs and stuff. But I have my reloading techniques down enough to where I'm comfortable personally. I have my my malfunction clearing on AR, well handled. When I run into issues on pistol though, I get I'm a little slower on those, and so I'm still working through those. So that's I guess like pistol is just my higher priority. But yeah, down the line, like I would love to take one of those Thunder Ranch courses. They look really cool. Or like there's some other courses out there that I've seen that look really cool, like really high speed stuff for carbine and rifle skills. I'm not opposed to
well, and just to throw just some insight or whatever, I've never been to a class. I mean, maybe if you talk like aerial platforms where you're in a helicopter or something, like there's no classes that do anything that's like a better ninja roll or something. Like, in fact, the most blowhard fake classes are the ones that try doing room entries and shit like that. Like, a real class is just the basics, like you just said, manipulations, prone, shooting around a corner, like whatever the standing prone, like whatever the stances are, is about as difficult as you're going to get, because it's not about some sort of ninja tactics. It's professionals practice until they can't get it wrong, and amateurs practice until they can get it right. So when you go to an elite level class, it's not jumping through a thing and doing something special or some extra level advanced. It's just doing the same stuff that you do always. It's just maybe with a little bit of like insight from somebody who's taught people how to do this professionally for decades, and their like flair or their like little experience points, but you're with a bunch of pros doing it at a different level. So when tennis players play tennis at a professional level, they're not playing a different tennis. They're just playing with other professionals, maybe faster, I guess, or, you know, maybe chess instead of checkers tennis. You know, I don't know, but, you know, with tennis, there's got to be like your three heads, you know, there's probably better tennis or whatever, but that's all I'm saying. Like, they're not using a different racket. They're not using better balls. They're just playing it with other people who are playing it at a different level. And it isn't definitely, I mean, an advanced class is almost introduces nothing new other than maybe quicker or, you know, with an element of something like where you're not distracted by something, but like very rarely is it more jumping or doing or something like that, unless it's like specifically a class for door kicking or aerial platform or team building or, you know, inside, what do they call that? You know, inside a shoot house type of thing. But anyway, it's more just about, just like I was saying, like seeing the nuances of instructors, learning the little things about, for example, how do you clear a type 3 malfunction in an AR-15? If you learn that in the military, you mortar it, and that is a way to do it, but it takes forever and it's stupid when they've come up with better ways. Like there's this karate choppy shit that you can do now. There's ways you can chop the gun in half quicker. And again, being with somebody who's done it a few times with bullets flying at them, and just a little trick like that is like still a type 3 malfunction. It's just, do you need to go to your knees to clear it, or can you do it off your hip? And knowing the difference because you've done it 16 times, and it seems crazy to people to pay a lot of money to hang out and just do some basic stuff. But that's why they don't bother to even hardly show videos. Or if they do, they're like the flashy Magpul commercial crap.
Yeah, like all the cool guy shit. Yeah,
and it's really just going around and doing stuff with people who are good at it. You know, if you're bicycling with people who bicycle, maybe they got a nicer bicycle, but basically they're just bicycling. They just do it at a different level where they're used to bicycling for 40 hours or 40 miles. I don't know how people bicycle, you know, instead of just jumping on a bicycle on the weekend. So anyway, that's all I'm getting is the training is awesome. There's so many levels to it. And then once you go to like a couple of different classes, you get that sort of extra level, just like the difference between listening to two different authors. Like I like sci-fi, I like to read sci-fi, but now I know the difference between like Isaac Asimov and Heinlein. You know, that's the difference when you start going to training. And does it make you a better shooter? I don't know, but it makes it more interesting. And mainly what you come home with also, I guess another big element of training is they're not there to teach you like, here's how to karate chop instead of kick. It's more like I just said, here's the same things. Type 1, type 2, type 3 malfunction. How do you shoot and talk to somebody? How do you shoot and pay attention to what's going on downrange? How do you shoot and patch yourself? I guess that's one element. Bringing first aid into a class. Usually they don't bother when you're doing like a marksmanship class, but like, you know, doing first aid might be in an advanced class, but it's hardly ninja rolls. It's just adding the element that you might get shot in all this situation. And now let's address that. And it's not like, you know, it's just that you incorporate that as a element of the routines or whatever. And it's not so much that you're, you know, ripping out bandages, but some classes you're going to put a tourniquet on or something like, and then try shooting with a tourniquet, right? It's not that it's ninja rolls, but it's just a little bit more into it than just thinking about it or talking about it. And once you've shot with a tourniquet on, you start to figure out, oh, you know what? My shirt is now attached to my arm and it wasn't before. So I don't get to just grab that AR like I can at the range and do it like I would normally do. Or, you know, now that this arm is incapacitated, it's actually tougher to get this around. But if I pull my belt, it isn't, right?
Yeah, and I think like probably the best example that comes to mind for me with my civilian courses, because I only have one, which is my CCW. That's the only civilian firearms course I've taken outside of like Boy Scouts, right? But with that one, I learned a technique for grabbing mags that I never would have thought about in a military context, because it was always my shit was oriented the same way in my carrier, and I would just grab and slam whatever in, and that was good, and that was sufficient. And then what I learned though was like, hey, if I'm concealed carrying, let's say there's a mag in the pocket, or let's say there's a mag on like, a holster inside the waistband, whatever, just because it's oriented the same way doesn't mean that your rounds are going to feed right if you have a round that's like slightly out of the magazine. So there's a technique to make sure that you would always, no matter where you were grabbing no matter how you were grabbing the magazine, you could get your hand indexed on it and then consistently make sure that it always fed, without having to look at the gun, without having to look at your magazine or do any weird stuff. And I was like, oh, okay. So this is like just kind of an example of like a refined technique. And that was probably my biggest takeaway from the course, or the one that I found the most valuable to me personally. But there were a lot of good techniques that I did learn in the course. And the other thing too was, shooting when it was cold, shooting outside, like getting away from the indoor range. That was something where before I was like, I've done stress shoots before, I've done like this and that, this is fine. Interjecting a little bit of outside stress, like just like so much as the temperature has changed and this and that, you're like, oh, okay, like I have to do things a little differently, or maybe I'm not as solid on these things as I thought I was, or whatever, And so just like little things, sometimes it's the little epiphanies I think you have along the way that make it really valuable.
Good, add up to the experience, right?
Right. Yeah.
I saw the coolest thing. I've actually been watching your videos, so I'm cheating. I'm watching your videos and then like updating the Minuteman University project. Basically, that's how I take a break from other crap I'm working on. So I'm going to screen share here because I don't even remember where it's all at, but I can show people. I'm working on a different browser, so now it's making me do a different screen. There. So on the Minuteman University, it's all about the resources and the skills. And I've almost exclusively worked on resources over the last couple of years, doing the cartoons and trying to accumulate all the different elements of our community and our industry. But on the skills side, it's all been about either building content or creating content. And I guess I have quite a bit of content already created to show you how to build a website or how to do videos and that kind of stuff. The kind of stuff Clover talks about on Thursdays. But the communication side, me and Smeggy and Woods and now Walt have been digging into that over, I guess, years now. And that's where I've been adding some of your stuff. I guess I stuck it over here to the 2A is woke. But this level of proficiency I found the other day, and I'm going to incorporate that somehow. But I don't know. I've seen when I found it in like a TED Talks type of thing I was watching on, and I don't really look at stuff. I don't pay attention to the stuff I'm watching. I just kind of line a bunch of stuff up and let it play as I'm walking around and doing other things. So I saw this stuff happening, and then just a graphic came up on like an overhead, and it was this. And I went, oh, that's awesome. So I went to look for it online, and I found like 17 different versions of it. I guess if Woods was out here, he'd probably tell us like they must use this in school or something. But anyway, it's this level of proficiency, and it started with awareness, novice, intermediate, advanced, and expert. And other ones sometimes have 4 or 6 levels, but with this, they went with basic knowledge for awareness, right? Limited experience for novice, practical application for intermediate, applied theory for advanced, and then recognized authority for expert. And I think that is the biggest jump, but I think there could be another one in there, really. But have you ever seen this? Am I just dumb and new to this, or this seems like a way to help visualize, I guess, where we are in all different things, like where we are in 2A, where we are in the gun culture, where we are in the conversation, because I'm always talking about moving the conversation along. Like I think most people are like, oh, I can talk to other people about guns? Great. Oh, we can do this? And I'm just like, I'm not saying I'm an authority. I'm just so fucking sick of hearing everybody go, oh, let's talk about our limited experience together. And nobody ever, if the people are out there talking about practical application, you know what I mean? Like we don't get into fights, so we don't have that much of that kind of practical application. But besides going to the range and buying stuff, we don't get past this too often.
Yeah.
But anyway,
as far as like, yeah, or is this like levels of like Second Amendment? Like, I guess this framework could be applied to everything, huh? Like just about any subject.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The thing I was listening to, it was more of like a tech thing, like level of awareness of technical ability, like on computing crap, like programming. And I was like, oh, this could work on 2A. But then when I went to find it online, I was looking for that graphic. I found it had to do with education. It had to do with like horse training. Yeah, it went on. And so it must be that's why I was wondering if you'd heard about it before. It must be get rid of the 2A, but just the levels of proficiency. It must be some basic model that you use. I mean, it makes sense. It's just some way to give a rating to awareness or knowledge, I guess, right?
Yeah, it seems pretty intuitive. I'm with it.
But anyway, I like the idea because, like I said, I think if we can apply that to a couple of things, it might give people some idea. And if it makes people understand where I'm at, like I say, I really think there should be something in between here, because for what we're talking about, I don't necessarily know how the hell you become an authority by just being there for a while. You'd have to have done something. But, so there might be something in here like, I don't know what to call it, like, because we have apathy, like we have other issues. We don't have just proficiency. But anyway, so I thought that was a little bit what we were talking about right there.
Yeah, it's something to think about. I will say, when you get, one-on-one instructor time is always valuable. Any subject. I'm jealous.
When you get into just instructing in general, I really wanted to do this last year after I did the 2A advocate sort of family tree looking thing, or like the tree of when they all sprouted up in the scene, because I had kind of finished that. So I was thinking it would be awesome to add shooting firearms training and instructors into that, and professional shooters and stuff, because they all kind of intermix. Hunters a little bit, but mostly competition shooters end up being instructors more often, and then obviously police and military, and that part fascinates me because I forget when it was, years ago I watched some video, and it was an old black and white, so maybe Korea era army video or an army movie that was on YouTube. And it was basically saying something to the effect of quit shooting like the old way, because now we have these 1911s and you're shooting it like, you're shooting your guns like a revolver, and this is a 1911. And then somewhere along the way past that, you hear people talk about the same thing with AR-15s, like quit shooting it like a wooden gun. This is an aluminum tube with a spring going up and down like a pogo stick in your shoulder. It's not the same thing as a big wood gun that, just has a mousetrap happening up in front of you. So you got to shoot them different. You hold them different. And that kind of stuff is what I think is interesting, when I guess I'm getting at what Pink's talking about here, that the instructors come from IDPA and USPSA, and the others didn't.
Yeah, it's interesting.
But anyway, so I guess when you think about training as evolving and being around for a long time, and where it came from and where it is today, when I first got into training and aware of it, because I knew about it, but I never paid any attention to it. And then actually, I told the story before, I was in a forum, the forum I was talking about before, and this guy comes along, and he's from Front Sight, and he's like, hey, you guys should go to Front Sight. It's so great. And I don't even think we were talking about training. It certainly wasn't on anybody's radar or anything, right? And then so we're like, I said something to him like, shut up, get out of here or whatever. And he's like, oh, no, really? You should go to Front Sight. It's so great. And I said something like, if it's so great, then put up or shut up or something, like send us there. And then he's like, yeah, give me your address or whatever. And then he contacted us, and he was like the third in command or something over there. So he ended up inviting us up there to experience it. And I was like, holy moly, this is amazing. And little did I know I was going to like, the hostess Twinkie of baked goods. Like I didn't even know what I was getting into was not even all that great. But I was like, wow, this is a whole new thing. So I started being aware of it. And at the time I was able to, because of whatever, I was able to say, hey, can I experience your training? Can I show the world what your training's all about? So I didn't have to pay to go to all these classes, but all these classes that come to Arizona, I started being aware of. And once I went to a few of them and they saw what I was doing, basically go in there and experience showing people them, but not showing all the secrets, right? And like I say, I started to experience a few of them and wow, this is pretty neat. But like you say, there's only so much you're actually, unless you're really into it, there's only so much you're going to get by shooting every single one. So I was getting so much by just experiencing the schools and the classes and the instruction and the styles and the curriculums, and then being able to offer that for, the experience of being to multiple ones, that yeah, it was just it was interesting to see at that, and this was like the 2000s, like the 2004 to 2012 era, and at that time it was everybody was just figuring out what online was. Magpul just came along in the middle of all that and put out their commercial videos, and that whole thing changed. Like it was crazy. Like it was it went from this exists and cops and military and a couple of competition shooters kept it alive, and then it turned into like, oh, you can do this, and then it was just got swamped, and then a bunch of emulators and copycats came to the scene, and there was this like massive resistance to any kind of videotaping or any kind of sharing or any kind of bragging, and holy moly, like this stuff has been so turbulent. Then there was like there's been, and they didn't all come sequentially, but there's also been waves of like, I hate training, and that's definitely persisted. There's the other side where people just are certificate addicts, and they just keep going to all different training they can. It's just all over the place. There's the alumni that are, what do you call it, like basically cultists, and then there's the people that go, like I say, to as many classes as they possibly can. And it's I don't know if it's come full circle as much as it just continues to evolve, because then you get to that Panteo, who started doing DVDs to supplement instructors, and then they became an online training thing. So training has just been, it's just super amazing. And unfortunately, I don't think there's anybody passionate enough that has put enough effort into like actually looking at it all. And I haven't had the time. I've wanted to do it. Like I said, I really wanted to do it last year. It just got insane last year, and I couldn't like just justify, hey, let's all stop and talk about training or the evolution of training. But and like I say, now, like what you just said, I guess what got me going on that whole thing is the idea that you can watch videos, and nobody can really say that's a bad. I mean, it's not good. You don't want to just watch videos. That would be wrong. But you can definitely get a lot from videos.
Oh yeah.
But at the same time, like you can't just watch videos. Like you can get video. You can learn. What's the word? Like you can learn how to drive by watching a bunch of videos, but you have to already know how to drive first. Like you can watch the videos day and night and get nothing from them except experience watching them. Once you've driven, you're going to get so much more out of every video you've ever watched, right? About driving. And I think it's like that. Like you have to go shoot first and understand what it's like to get dirt up your nose, or like I was saying, like have a tourniquet on while you try to do something, just to experience different. Because so many people just ever went to the range and they don't even know what it's like to shoot when it's not noisy, or when it's not like it is at a range where everybody's not shooting in the same direction. It makes people poo.
Right. I was going to say, because I'm getting tired here, I'm about to pass out, but I think I've got the instructor who did my CCW course, I think said that they'd be down for an interview. And so it might be fun to do an episode sometime soon about training. So I'll see if I can get in touch with them and set something up. But
I think you'll always do good. There's always an audience for training for sure.
Yeah. So just talking about training and why it's important, because he and I agree on a lot. We disagree on a lot of politics stuff, and maybe even on some 2A stuff, but the guy is a really good instructor. And I think it'd be worth it to have him on. But yeah, I'm going to bounce, I think.
Right on. Thanks for jumping in and defending your 2A. I think you've defended it successfully.
Also, hi, DJ. Yeah, take it easy, guys.
See ya.
Go easy, man.
All right, well, now we're 3 hours in, and Woods is out there. It's a taxonomy, I guess, yes. I still feel like there should be something between advanced and expert. But anyway, that would be a whole nother discussion probably for not 3 a.m. You got anything else?
Yeah. Have you ever taken a MAG 40 class from Masad?
Twice. And then technically I've been to more than that, but I've gotten to I've done it myself. I've been to the class twice, yes.
Can you give me a breakdown on what it's like? 4 days.
Well, I don't know because he's not. Is it going to be Moss or is it going to be somebody else?
It's supposed to be him.
So then, because I just don't know if everybody else has to do it the exact same way. There's basically it's going to half, so it's half range and half lecture, and it's not like, at least I don't think he does it differently. It's not, and I think he does this intentionally. It's not like lecture one day and then range one day and then lecture. It might be heavier on lecture one day and heavier on range one day, but for the most part, it's going to be intermixed so that it wakes you up and you don't get tired at the range and you don't get bored in the lecture, and that helps a lot. It makes it go by. It's going to be drinking from a fire hose, so it's as much an effort in understanding how to learn and how to take notes, and as much an effort in being part of a class and an alumni of Moss as it is in getting all. You're not going to be able to retain the info as an individual, and if you can, then fuck you, because you're not normal. Like, he's definitely giving you more than you can handle because he's giving you value, but he's also giving you the opportunity to work with the people in the class, and that's part of the experience. And many of the people that don't like what he offers is because they don't take advantage of what he's offering, and that's part of it, is working with, going over your notes with others. There's a whole procedure you'll learn about. So basically, it's not random blah blah blah, I got nothing else to do, or I'm trying to be big man or nothing. It's like legit, like well thought out, like strategic, really cool stuff with that. The gun stuff is going to be focused on, I think, at least for me, it's dialed in more to competition shooting than hunting, for damn sure. It would be more like speed than like chess games or something. You don't move at all, I don't think. You might walk. I don't remember anymore. You don't walk or move hardly ever. So there's nothing like, maybe you go to your knee once. There's none of that ninja crap at all. It's just well, Moss has a way of shooting that I guess some people have a problem with. I like it. It works for me. But he does have a way of shooting. Some classes don't care about your shooting style. He offers a shooting style, and he has you shoot it that way. For people that don't like that, then that's like, there's that student who shows up at a class and goes, my grandma does it that way, so I'm going to tell you, instructor, about how my grandma does it. So do you go to a class to tell an instructor how your grandma does it? Or do you go to a class to learn another way than the way your grandma does it, right? So there's that. There's people that don't like what he's doing because he teaches a way. And I understand that there is no way, that the way is knowing one way is knowing them all or whatever, but you can't know that unless you actually experience them once in a while. And anyway, so there's that issue. You're going to learn a way to shoot from him. And then the lecture is insane. It's best. It's not the best lecture. It's the best lecture of its kind, hands down. It's literally the reason he's got his reputation. I don't know the thing to tell you. There's going to be no extra time. He smokes. You smoke? Yeah. For people that don't smoke, like, Moss ain't for you. Like, if you smoke cigarettes and you can hang out, like, sitting there for 10 minutes in a smoke break, or, like, that's your thing. You know how it is being a smoker. When somebody comes out and they're not a smoker and they're like, hey, guys who smoke, and they don't know how to smoke, like, you know what I mean? Like, that's a little weird. And that happens because there's some people that can't get enough Moss. But being a smoker, you're going to experience better than anybody else, because it's just like anything. Smoking breaks with a smoker means you're you're with them when they're on their off time also. Yep. And Moss is a true human. He's a cool ass dude. I don't smoke, but I did, and I would go outside and hang out with him still. Like, you'd be losing time with insight to massive experience if you don't go out and hang out with them. And that's what, like I say, that's an element that some people just don't care. They ain't going to get, they don't want. So there's that. otherwise, I don't know. Like I say, it's been a while since I've done it. I don't know if any other specific questions. I did it out here in the desert each time, so I don't know if it's probably different where it's not all dusty and you're not shooting like literally into Mexico. You know, it's going to be different for the range. Whenever that place, you have to drive into town, and Moss knew the guy, so I happened to know the guy, so we went and out drinking because I knew I was in the inn. I was like with the people that brought him here, but I don't know if that was an open invitation. I don't think he's like, you know, oh, I can't get enough of people hanging around being weird to me, so please come join me for dinner. Right. But there's maybe that opportunity. He does eat dinner. I've bought beers for Moss before. He does accept beers to be bought for him. He drinks Rolling Rock, if I'm not mistaken.
Good. So what would be the best non-range pre-class work? Like I have 2 books, but I think
I've never been into that, so there's probably an answer to that. I just don't know it. I never have time. I end up going to classes except for Moss. I don't always do this, but I usually go to classes and I'm not taking the class. I'm just experiencing the class. So I don't have to read nothing if I don't want, and I never have time to, so I almost never do. I do sometimes. I don't want to say I never do, because like a real instructor that has you have prerequisites that take that advantage, like read those. If I forget now that you're saying that, Moss does have prerequisites, read them for damn sure. And read them. Like, don't just look at them, like read them. He'll refer to them. Like say, you're going to get from a fire hose. You're not going to get everything. You're going to have to take good notes. But there's only a couple of instructors that ask for that put down prerequisites for reading. And there's only like 2, him and Jaeger are the only ones I know that like actually mean it. Like, you know, they expect you to have read it. Everybody else just puts it down because they're like, these are some good ideas, some things you might want to read that are interesting. Not everybody. I can't think of everybody when I'm thinking here in the middle of the night, but for the most part, that's Moss is one of the ones you want to read his prerequisites. But otherwise, there's nothing you can. You're just going to experience another level. I mean, have you ever watched any of his lectures online?
Oh, a couple, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same. You'll get a lot of video, and he does the video for a reason. So you're going to see the same video that we all seen. And then, you know, he's not his first time to a rodeo, so it's an experience, but it's also a professional experience. It's not like I'm going to get on stage, and there are instructors that are just like, you're here to see me, and I'm going to blab, like, because you'll pay for anything, and I know it. And you'll walk away with anything and say it's gospel. And I'll just sit here and fart around. He's not that. He'll play a little bit. I mean, he's a human. He's a good guy. So he'll play around. But when you're there to learn, like he's teaching you. And he's done it a million times. And it's not like, I mean, he's not like he's reading a script. But he isn't joking around. But at the same time, if a joke happens, if he knows somebody there and something, you know, like he'll bring it up. He's natural. It's not like difficult. It's just it's not like, in other words, it's difficult. I shouldn't say that. It's not unpleasant to listen. It's actually really fun to listen to him. It would be kind of cool if you could just record the whole thing and then take the notes later. But it's not effective, so you don't want to do that. But I mean, it's fun to listen to and everything, but you don't really have an opportunity to just sit around listening. You're going to want to keep taking notes the whole time because it's just all good info. He puts a lot. He puts 6 days worth of info into 4 days.
Cool. I look forward to that. Do you have any idea what he might be hitting people for to take that course? Is that going to be like $1,000 or better?
Oh, I have no idea. I thought you were already signed up for it.
No, that's the thing. I just found out about it, and where it's supposed to be hosted, the guy just passed me off to somebody else with a different phone number. It's not on their site, but it's on Ayub's site.
Oh, okay. No, I have no idea. It's not cheap for 4 days. Yeah, it's probably expensive.
Yeah. Well, thankfully I can camp. Stuff like that. Good enough. what do you got going on your overnight then?
I'm going to bed right now. I quit drinking coffee, so I'm tired as hell.
Got it.
Thanks again. Yeah, Rolling Rock and the mindset he puts you in. Yep. You'll definitely, at least more than one person that I've talked to, and I can remember feeling the same way, is you're going to question if you want to keep carrying. When the real life stuff happens, when it's not somebody trying to sell you holsters and shit, and not trying to exploit basically tragedies that other people had, making it look like some kind of cowboy fucking shit. Once you start talking about the real consequences and responsibilities, yeah, and you're like, yeah, I wonder if this is something, there's a lot to this. Like, you really think about it, which I'm sure is, well, that is why he does that. And there's only a couple classes that, like you say, that'll address that stuff. Or a couple of instructors, I should say, that are willing to take a class to that level.
I look forward to that sort of engagement.
All right, well, we got 9 people, but only Pink saying stuff. And I'm yawning. And we already dropped everybody else out of here. So I guess we'll be wrapping it up. We'll see how many people chat. One of the things I guess I need to do, I'm not going to do it tonight right now, but is come up. I haven't even sent nothing from Friday. So you said, like, send your stuff, whatever, next time. And then I'm just assuming that with the other people that ordered, because only a couple of people ordered. But I've been meaning to put together a patch panel so that y'all can pick some patches. And I keep putting that off because I got crap that keeps copping up. But yeah, that's something that's on the immediate list of shit I need to get done here for Free Patch Friday again. So I don't know if I'm going to guarantee that for tomorrow, but I look forward to that in the next couple of days here.
Right on.
All right. Well, with that, I guess we'll wrap it up. Nobody said nothing. In fact, 2 people went running when I called them out for not saying nothing out there. So that's an indication that we got mopes scamming off of us. What happens is a lot of the mopes will watch this show and then they'll script off, literally just take the right, like what you said, whatever DJ has said right now will be in a script for tomorrow's show. So listen, and it'll probably be somebody who you won't even expect just saying that script, whatever DJ just said. So that's what happens is they listen to this show, and then whenever we wrap it up and say something, that's how their show will end up. So pay attention. You'll see who the scam